In every era, the story starts the same way: a dark castle under a stormy sky, and a party of so-called heroes kicks down the door shouting about justice prevailing, where they finally come face to face with the man of the hour, the Demon King, who seems less like a villain and more like a guy just accepting his terrible destiny. He introduces himself as Laruslia Nord, the 100th person to hold this cursed title, while the hero in shiny armor points his glowing sword, ready for the final boss fight. But Nord remembers how it all started, with humans slaughtering his people in the name of justice. So naturally, the demons fought back to defend themselves from the invaders, which led to an endless cycle of war with both sides pointing blades at each other. A pointless, brutal conflict where negotiations were never even on the table. Now, he faces yet another hero party in this foolish game for world domination. He knows humans always fear what they can't control, predicting the hero will win. Yet, for some reason, Nord isn't worried about this particular outcome at all. This hero charges forward without a word, as Nord prepares a blast of crimson energy, while his party members channel power from the gods. Because that's not an unfair advantage. Their ultimate attacks collide in a massive explosion of red and blue light. Because as history is always written by the victors, justice is destined to prevail, and just like that, the hero's holy sword finds its mark, plunging straight through Nord's chest as his party looks on in shock. But as he looks down at the blade, all Nord can say is, "I see." After all, the hero's party was perfectly stacked, a classic setup for a righteous victory. Nord just smiles, telling the hero that maybe killing him really is the right thing to do, which completely throws the guy off, who demands to know why the Demon King is laughing. But the smile fades as Nord's thoughts drift to something far more important than this fight. He looks down at the blade in his chest, mentioning the daughter of a dear friend, a little girl named Iris whose birthday is tomorrow, and he'd promised to visit. She even calls him uncle, but with him gone, the end, for all demonkind, is near. He knows it's a tragedy, because once the king falls, the humans will hunt down everyone. And that means sweet little Iris will be a target too, just for being born a demon. Looking the hero in the eye, Nord says he can see the kid isn't lying about his convictions. So he decides to drop a final truth bomb on his killer before he checks out for good, explaining how the church paints all demons as pure evil in their holy texts. But he urges the hero to see with his own eyes that they're really not so different, telling him that when he finally understands the truth and feels something is wrong, he needs to think about the fate of all demonkind, and maybe, just maybe, fight for a future where both races can actually coexist. This hero stands there, completely silent, letting the dying king's words sink in, before finally reaching out and saying he understands the request, promising that he will believe in Nord's final words. And with that, he vows not to discriminate against demons anymore. With a final knowing smile, Nord thanks the hero for understanding his last request. And as his vision fades, he realizes the hero was a woman the entire time. Though for some reason, the saintess in her party is glaring at him with absolute hatred. But he figures it doesn't really matter when you're literally seconds from ceasing to exist. He puts his faith in her as his body dissolves into a cloud of purple energy. And that should have been the end of the story, but things were about to get weird, because suddenly a gentle voice calls out to Luru, who's finally starting to wake up. A kind-looking woman with warm red eyes peers down, wishing him a good morning, but from his perspective, he's just confused about why a human is looking at him. Her hand reaches down towards him, and he has no clue what she's planning to do, only for her to gently scoop him up like he's the most precious thing in the world. And that's when it hits him. He's been reborn as a tiny, helpless human baby. This woman, his new mother, just calmly tells him she's going to prepare a meal, but he feels so warm and comfortable in her arms that his baby brain starts to shut down. It turns out the old demon myth about the cycle of birth and death was actually real, allowing souls to be reborn into completely different life forms after they pass on. Nord, now named Luru, can't believe he's experiencing the legendary phenomenon himself, and the wildest part is that he remembers his entire past life with perfect clarity. All the days spent with his demon comrades and his promise to little Iris, and especially the bitter end when he was struck down by the hero's holy sword. Luru wonders if there's some grand purpose to being reborn with all his memories intact, but his current reality is just eating and sleeping, a far cry from his kingly duties. On the bright side, after a lifetime of war and politics, he's got a ton of free time now, and he immediately starts gathering information, noting the presence of servants in the house, wishing he could just ask how long it's been since his own demise. If only he could talk. Stuck in his crib, he can only watch the maid work, desperate to move on his own. But then he spots something interesting. The maid pulls out a wand to heat some water, muttering a few simple words to conjure a small flame in the fireplace. And Luru is absolutely appalled by her terrible spell grammar, a true crime against magic. Because from his expert perspective, such a basic fire spell shouldn't even need a chant. But then it hits him. He hasn't actually tried using magic since being reborn, so he decides to test out his new human body's magical potential, flexing a tiny bicep. He doesn't expect much, but then a massive surge of crimson energy erupts from him, and he realizes not only his memories came back, but his insane magical power did too. This control isn't as smooth as before, which could be a human body problem or just an infant body problem, but he's confident some special training will fix it, once he's sure no one's watching. He's not about to get taken out again due to a lack of power, vowing to live this life with no regrets. Flash forward 7 years, and time has passed peacefully in his new home. In a dark library, a book floats through the air, surrounded by that familiar crimson energy, and there's our boy Luru, already mastering his powers like the prodigy he is. He was honestly a little worried about his new body's magical potential. But our boy Luru has already gotten a pretty good handle on his demonic powers. He's fairly certain he could level an entire village, so he's wisely decided against any field tests for now. Besides getting his magic back, he's also pieced together a few other things, starting with just how long it's been since that hero took him down. And it turns out several thousand years have passed, which explains a lot. As he's processing this massive time skip, his mother calls out his name. Having found him hiding out in the library like the little bookworm he is, she leans in with a knowing smile, already guessing what he's been reading, asking if he's been poring over those old myths about ancient demons again. Apparently, his entire race has been relegated to a spooky bedtime story, and his mom just thinks it's a cute little fantasy he's going through. Luru knows better though, certain that some of his people are still out there. But as a 7-year-old, he can't exactly leave the village to go find them. His mom then drops some good news announcing his father Patrick is coming home soon, which gets her all excited while Luru just hopes the guy brings back more books. Turns out this Patrick is a pretty big deal, a sword instructor for the kingdom's knights and the village lord. Luru's actually looking forward to it, hoping he can get some swordsmanship training from his new dad. But then his mom suddenly remembers the real reason she came looking for him, reminding him he's supposed to be playing with friends, not plotting in the study. His mom practically shoves him out the door, reminding him he's supposed to be playing outside. So Luru reluctantly heads out, already running a little behind schedule. As he crosses a small bridge, a familiar voice calls out to him. It's his friends, and they're not exactly thrilled that he's kept them waiting. This whole group is gathered by the river, giving him the classic "you're late" treatment, and a red-haired kid immediately starts laying into him for his tardiness. Luru just explains he got lost in a book, which only confuses the other boy more. This kid, Rusty, thinks boys should be all about adventure, not dusty old tomes. Internally, Luru is already tired of hearing about Rusty's grand adventurer dreams, and a blonde girl named Mi calls him out, since he can't even pass Luru's dad's sword test yet. While Rusty fumes, Luru just wonders when he'll finally be able to leave this tiny village. This silver-haired girl, Yuri, chimes in to defend Rusty's ambitions though. These three are his childhood friends, and apparently they bicker like this constantly. Luru knows the real reason the girls don't want Rusty to leave is because they both have a crush on him. But of course, Rusty is completely oblivious, which our boy finds endlessly amusing. To stop the argument, Luru reminds Rusty about the special event planned for today, which gets his attention immediately, his excitement suddenly back in full force. With a smug grin, he announces that today's the day they are supposed to arrive, shocking everyone with the news that real adventurers are coming to their village. Mi is skeptical, since the only adventurers they get are just merchant guards, but Rusty insists this time is different. He's going on about some legendary top-class adventurer who's about to grace their humble village, and the rest of the group knows there's absolutely no stopping him once he gets this hyped up. This kids all take off for the village entrance, where a small crowd is already waiting, but when they arrive, Rusty's excitement immediately dies on the spot. Instead of a hero's welcome, it's just a bunch of regular villagers standing around, leaving the kids to realize the event hasn't even started yet. Rusty starts getting super impatient, practically vibrating with the need to see his idols. So he suddenly bolts ahead to scout, completely ignoring the girls calling after him. Luru just watches him go, quietly mulling over this whole adventurer concept, noting how such a profession wasn't needed in his era when the lands were actually managed. He wonders if the world's decay is just from the passage of time, or if something else is at play. But his thoughts are cut short by a terrified scream from up ahead. A massive, three-eyed monster bursts from the trees, roaring at the villagers. And naturally, it's charging straight for Rusty, who's frozen right in its path. Luru instantly summons his demonic energy, ready to erase the beast himself. But before he can act, a blonde elf appears and unleashes a powerful wind spell. Her whirlwind attack completely ensnares the monster, lifting it off the ground, which gives her brawny warrior companion the perfect opening to leap in. And with a single brutal swing of his greatsword, he slices the creature in two. Luru can only stare, completely stunned as the real adventurers make their dramatic entrance. This warrior stands over the monster's dissolving corpse, a pretty solid first impression, and he immediately turns his attention to Rusty, the kid he just saved from becoming Monster Chow, casually asking if he's hurt after that near-death experience. Rusty is just completely starstruck, his brain having short-circuited from the sheer coolness, before he finally blurts out that they were unbelievably amazing. And after a quick nudge from his friends, he even remembers to stammer out a thank you. This elf and the warrior just smile, glad they could prevent a kid from getting flattened. Luru, however, is busy analyzing the elf from a distance, trying to get a read on her. Rusty gets right up in her face, asking if she's a spirit because of her pointy ears, and she playfully introduces herself as Yumi's, an elf, which is basically the next best thing. Her brawny companion then introduces himself as Gran, her adventuring partner. From the sidelines, Luru confirms they're both highly skilled, sensing a power level far beyond this village. Yumi's correctly guesses that all the local kids probably dream of becoming adventurers too, and Rusty practically vibrates as he shouts his confirmation. He's completely fired up, declaring his life's ambition to the very people living his dream. Gran gives him an encouraging pat on the head, saying it's not an impossible goal, but he also gives him a reality check: get strong or get dead. This only fuels Rusty's determination, which seems to impress the seasoned warrior. Gran offers to tell them some stories if they lead him to the inn, a deal Rusty instantly accepts. This girl's just watch on, with Yuri worried about his hype levels and me lamenting that boys never change. Yumi's watches the kids bicker, correctly pegging the whole situation as a classic love triangle. So she turns to Luru and asks where he fits in, to which he deadpans he's just an observer. Finding him amusingly odd, she teases him about the two girls fighting over Rusty's attention, even giving him the terrible advice to stake a claim now, which he is absolutely not having. Luru just smirks, admitting he finds it far more entertaining to watch the chaos from the sidelines, though his gaze then drifts a little lower, earning him a very unimpressed look from the elf. After a brief awkward moment, Luru offers to guide the tired adventurers to the local inn, casually mentioning they were also attacked by monsters, which completely freaks Yumi's out. Later at the inn, the drinks are flowing as the adventurers get a hero's welcome from the villagers. Gran starts recounting their recent travels, mentioning a stop they made at some nearby ruins, and he teases Yumi's for getting weirdly fixated on them, much to her annoyance. She fires back that he was the one who got distracted by a random fighting tournament, while Rusty is absolutely mesmerized, completely idolizing the seasoned warriors. A local then asks if they came specifically to see the old ruins on the edge of town, explaining they're just some ancient forgotten structures with no known history. But Yumi's gets a glint in her eye, suggesting she has her own theory about their origins, and she dramatically declares they were built by the ancient demons, stopping Luru cold. Standing up for a grand announcement, she doubles down on her demon ruins theory, leaving Luru completely stunned to hear his own people mentioned after thousands of years. Gran immediately shuts her down, arguing that real demon ruins aren't that easy to find. Yumis insists her theory is romantic, but Luru just sips his drink, thinking Gran had a point. She privately admits she can spot demonic ruins instantly, but has absolutely zero proof to back it up. After all, to the rest of the world, ancient demons are nothing more than a fairy tale. Meanwhile, asks Gran if exploring ruins is his main gig, but he says he mostly just kills monsters. Turns out ruin diving and fighting in tournaments are just hobbies. He only came here for Yumi's. Luru's mom teases that he wasn't exactly forced to tag along, implying he's just following his partner. These two are clearly having a great time, living the free-spirited adventurer life to the absolute fullest. Luru leans over to his mom, probably making some snarky comment about the couple's whole dynamic. At that exact moment, Rusty marches up to Gran, ready to make the biggest pitch of his life. He swears he'll train harder than ever and begs the warrior to take him on as an apprentice. And Gran's response is a swift and brutal no way, completely shutting the kid down. This, of course, sends Rusty into a full-on crying fit, which makes the warrior totally panic. He tries to explain that the job isn't all glory, since it's mostly just chores for rookies. Besides, he can't babysit a kid who isn't even an adventurer yet. But Rusty spots an opening. This kid cleverly asks if Gran will take him on after he officially becomes a real adventurer. Gran just cracks up, completely caught off guard by the boy's sheer unshakable nerve. Amused by his persistence, he agrees to the deal, promising to be his master when that day comes. As Rusty celebrates, Luru smirks, impressed by his friend's surprisingly sharp negotiation skills. His mom notes how happy Rusty is, but Luru knows that If is doing some very heavy lifting in that promise. Still, he's not worried, remembering his own dad mentioned Rusty has some serious potential. Luru's mom watches the celebration, pretty sure Rusty has what it takes to be an apprentice. Me and Yuri, however, are just worried this will make him even more determined to leave them. Their conversation is immediately crashed by Yumi's, who pops in asking for all the gossip, and after a quick apology for the jump scare, she makes herself right at home. She just wanted in on the girl talk before her eyes light up with a very specific theory, asking if they're having some love troubles, which hits them both like a lightning bolt. They try to play it off as just being worried, but Yumi slyly points out she never said who it was about. This elf leans in, ready to drop some very pointed and probably unhelpful advice. She's sure Rusty will achieve his dream, which is the entire source of their anxiety, so she asks if they're really prepared to just stay behind and watch him leave forever. Before they can spiral, Luru's mom claps her hands, announcing it's way past the kid's bedtime, and the innkeeper starts herding them out, much to Rusty's very vocal disappointment. Luru, ever the chill one, just agrees to head home when his mom calls for him. As he leaves, he finds himself thinking that Gran and Yumi's are a genuinely interesting duo. This other kids get dragged away, bummed the night is over while Rusty is still bouncing off the walls. Walking home, Luru reflects on how long it's been since the village felt this lively. He holds his mom's hand, feeling that familiar quiet that always follows a good party. For him, it's a feeling that hasn't changed in millennia, right before his mom calls his name. She starts to ask if he too will one day decide to leave the village behind, but she cuts herself off, saying it's nothing, leaving Luru wondering what she really meant. Luru just gives a quiet okay, but his expression says so much more. He knows exactly what she was thinking, that one day he'll grow up and leave this place behind. This next morning, the village is back to its usual peaceful self, and Luru is out in the woods, getting in some serious sword practice. He puts some real force behind his swings, kicking up a storm of dust with every move. His form is flawless, a clear sign of his training under an elite knight, his own dad. Each swing is precise and powerful, far beyond what you'd expect from a kid his age. He finishes his routine, looking every bit the seasoned warrior in the making. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he calls it a day, pretty satisfied with his progress. He's trying to improve his human skills so he doesn't accidentally reveal his demon lord powers. But his walk home is cut short by a sudden commotion in the village center. One of the local moms rushes over, frantically asking if he's seen the other kids. She's clearly on the verge of a full-blown panic, which immediately puts Luru on high alert. This bad news drops like a rock. Rusty and the girls are completely missing. Apparently, no one has seen them since early this morning, and the whole town is worried. This woman asks if Luru has any idea where they are, but he's just as clueless as everyone else. He flashes back to last night, remembering how hyped up Rusty was about becoming an adventurer, and a terrible, very plausible theory starts forming in his head. They snuck out. Luru then recalls Yumi's mentioning she was going to check out the ruins near the village. Putting two and two together, he immediately volunteers to go look for his idiot friends. He steels himself, vowing to protect his first ever human friends from their own stupidity. As he sprints towards the village exit, he's suddenly spotted by Yumi's, and they both recognize each other from the inn, though the vibe is way more tense now. She immediately tells him to stay back, announcing she's about to seal the entire village. This elf starts chanting, pulling power from the forest to erect a massive magical barrier. Luru cuts her off, yelling that Rusty and the girls are missing, which makes her completely freeze. He explains they probably ran off to the ruins, but now he's trapped on the wrong side of her wall. Yumi's apologizes, admitting the spell is already in motion and she can't stop it now. A massive hexagonal barrier springs to life, sealing the village off from the outside world. Luru demands an explanation, but she insists it's for everyone's protection, which isn't helping. Before he can argue, a strange mechanical buzz from above cuts their conversation short, revealing a giant bug-like monster hovering in the sky, a magic machina. Turns out a whole swarm of them flew out of the ruins, forcing her to rush back and play defense. Luru immediately recognizes the gravity of the situation, his expression hardening. He knows exactly what those are, ancient anti-human weapons created by his own people. While her barrier protects the village, those things could easily fly off and attack a city. But Yumi points out something odd, not about the ruins, but what happened right before this. A wall collapsed as they were leaving, trapping Gran inside to fight a massive version of these things alone. Luru instantly connects the dots, realizing the entire ruin was a trap from the very start. He turns to Yus, telling her he has to go somewhere else immediately, a plan already forming. Yumi's is completely floored by his sudden declaration, demanding to know what he means. But she flatly refuses to lower the barrier, telling him a kid can't possibly help. This elf explains only she can grant passage, so he should just run along home now. Luru, however, places his hand on the wall, unleashing a torrent of raw demonic power, and he casually phases right through her impenetrable barrier like it's nothing at all. Yumi's is absolutely losing her mind, since she definitely did not give him permission. Our boy smirks, announcing he's just rewriting her magic to take control of the spell himself. She can't believe it, insisting that hijacking someone's magic equation is completely impossible. Unfortunately for her, she's now trapped inside her own barrier, which has turned a sinister purple. Luru even helpfully enhanced its power output, using her own mana to do it, of course. He also copied the entry rules, leaving her to babysit the kids if they happen to wander back. With a confident wave, he tells her he's counting on her before heading off to find his friends. This elf is left pounding on the inside of her own spell, completely outplayed by a 10-year-old. All she can do is stare, wondering what in the world that kid actually is. Meanwhile, at the ruins, the situation is looking pretty grim. Gran is shielding the kids from a massive stone guardian that's active but strangely stationary. He figures it only reacts to movement, warning everyone to stay perfectly still. This leaves him in a total stalemate, unable to move without triggering an attack. At that exact moment, Luru sprints into the chamber, catching Gran completely by surprise. This warrior demands to know why he's here, so Luru explains Yumi's is busy sealing the village. Gran immediately tries to sideline Luru, ordering him to go hide with the other kids. After a quick head count, he confirms everyone's safe before turning to face his opponent. A Rups Gigantus, an ancient machine Luru knows was built for civil work, not combat. He realizes he's the only one here who can actually stop these things, so backing down isn't an option. Luru figures these ground units have the same high accuracy cannons as the flying ones, making them a huge threat. Without a word, our boy starts walking forward, completely catching Gran off guard. This warrior immediately yells at him to stop, warning him not to get any closer to the Titan. His friends are freaking out too, begging him to come back before he gets himself killed. Luru just brushes them off, telling Gran he's counting on him to keep the others safe. As he takes another step, the Guardian's eye immediately snaps to him, locking on. Its red sensor glows, targeting him as the primary threat in the area. This entire machine whirs to life, its full attention now fixed on the kid. Luru stops dead in his tracks, explaining this is the limit. It won't attack unless they approach the ruin. Gran realizes it's just a guard dog, but he has no idea why it's protecting this place. Even Luru is stumped, since he has absolutely no memory of ever building this particular ruin. Concluding it was built after his death, he announces he's going inside, but Gran shuts that down fast. This warrior refuses to risk a kid's life, insisting this whole mess is his and Yumi's fault anyway. Besides, he points out that Luru is just a child who doesn't have the strength to fight. Luru's face goes blank for a second, processing that very specific, very wrong assumption, before a smirk spreads across his face, asking if that means it's fine as long as he's strong enough. Luru asks if it's okay to go in as long as he's strong enough, a question dripping with sarcasm. Gran barely gets a yes out before Luru tells him to just watch the show. Without another word, our boy just sprints directly at the giant stone guardians, whose eyes immediately flare red, locking onto the incoming threat, and one raises a massive stone club to flatten the kid into a pancake. Luru just leaps into the air, wreathed in demonic energy, easily dodging the swing, before cocking back a glowing red fist with a look of pure focus and punching a hole straight through the Guardian's torso like it's made of paper. Gran and the other kids can only stare, their jaws practically on the floor. Now Luru stands between the two titans, one of them critically damaged, daring the other to move. This second Guardian throws a punch, but Luru just raises a hand to meet it, effortlessly catching its massive weapon with his bare hands. He stops the colossal attack dead in its tracks, surrounded by shattered stone. This leaves Gran completely speechless, wondering what kind of monster this kid actually is. Luru turns back with a smirk, asking if he's proven he's capable enough for the job. Having no other choice, Gran concedes the point but insists on setting some conditions. He argues that an adult needs to go in too, since this is a major discovery. His plan is to drop the kids back at the village, telling Luru not to explore any further. Luru just casually agrees, telling him to hurry back, or he'll just go home. He then tells his friends to be safe, and they finally admit they're way out of his league. This girls give a sheepish apology, telling him to be careful in there. Luru just gives them a quick wave, ready to head into the ruins alone, and with the coast clear, he turns to the entrance, ready to get this over with. Inside, he finds a high-tech console and immediately gets to work, shutting down the entire swarm of magic machina with a few simple commands. While he's at it, he decides to poke around for some extra intel and finds something weird. There are no long-range attack units listed at all. Thinking back, he realizes all the machines were purely defensive, which makes no sense. This whole ruin wasn't a fortress. It was built to protect something inside. He spots a large chamber on the map and is dying to investigate, but then he remembers Gran's strict order to wait until he got back from dropping off the kids. Luru sighs, deciding to actually keep his promise for once. What a concept. So he just finds a corner and sits down, patiently waiting for the adult to return. This quiet hallway triggers a weird sense of déjà vu, but he can't quite place the memory. A faint echo of a past life surfaces, a time when he was surrounded by others in a similar place. His thoughts are cut short when he hears footsteps approaching down the corridor. Gran has finally returned, immediately checking to see if the kid is all right. Luru just plays it cool, assuring the warrior that everything's fine. He brushes it off as just being a little cold, which Gran chalks up to being underground. This knight asks for a status report, and Luru confirms the machines are completely offline. Gran wants to know how he did it, so Luru just says he randomly pushed buttons. This warrior then brings up Yumis's barrier, and Luru suddenly remembers trapping her. Our boy just shrugs, saying he'll rewrite the spell again later, which completely stuns Gran. This knight tries to explain that rewriting magic is supposed to be an impossible feat, but Luru just smirks, wondering if modern mages are really that far behind the times. He quickly changes the subject, pointing out a room deeper inside they should investigate. Following the corridor, they arrive at a massive ornate door blocking their path, which seems to be the entrance to the ruin's core, a place of major importance. Gran gives it a shove, but the heavy door doesn't even budge an inch. He speculates there's a hidden switch back in the control room they just left, but Luru confirms he already checked for one, not wanting to waste time backtracking. Deciding to try something else, he places his hand directly on the door's surface, and the central gem immediately begins to glow with a vibrant pink light. A strange, automated voice suddenly echoes through the hall, confirming his energy signature, identifying him as Laruzlia Nord, the 100th King, and asking to release the lock. This system continues its scan, its voice resonating from the door itself, repeating the query while awaiting a command from the one it recognizes as its master. Luru is floored that it knows his true identity, and immediately yells for it to open. This system responds with a simple Roger as the gem flashes with power, and the intricate locking mechanism finally begins to retract with a heavy clunk. With a heavy groan, the massive door slides open, revealing a blindingly white chamber inside. Gran looks over at the kid, a little shaken, asking if they should actually head in. They cautiously step across the threshold, entering the mysterious high-tech room, but what they find inside leaves both of them completely stunned, stopping them in their tracks. In the center of the chamber sits a single pristine hibernation pod on a raised platform. Luru immediately recognizes it as a last-ditch effort to preserve the demon race after the war. He desperately wonders if the project actually succeeded and if someone is still inside. This thought of seeing his old comrades again has him practically shaking with anticipation. Rushing forward, he pleads with the universe that the capsule isn't empty. His eyes wide with a fragile hope he hasn't felt in a very, very long time. And inside he sees her, a young white-haired girl named Iris, sleeping peacefully. His mind flashes back to the war, remembering he never got to celebrate her last birthday. After thousands of years, the idea of actually seeing her again is almost too much to handle. Gran, meanwhile, is just freaking out, demanding to know why a person is in this ruin. Luru realizes the warrior has no clue she's an ancient demon, since their kind is long forgotten. This knight just assumes she's a normal person, concluding she might still be alive in there. His immediate, very practical solution is to just crack the thing open and check. Luru is left speechless for a second, since there's no obvious way to open the pod. Then it clicks. If it works like the door, he just needs to use his own energy signature. He places his hand on the capsule, and a familiar red energy begins to swirl around it. Gran watches in confusion as Luru orders the hibernation device to halt its sequence, screaming at the machine to prioritize the life of the person inside at all costs. This system simply responds with Roger as the capsule begins to depressurize, and with a hiss of escaping gas, the stasis field finally deactivates after millennia. Gran is relieved to see she's still breathing, and Luru can only agree, his voice filled with emotion. He softly says her name, Iris, a genuine smile spreading across his face. His mind flashes back to his old comrades, remembering when Iris's father was still alive, and how he doted on his daughter, a bittersweet memory from a life long since past. He even recalls how she used to look up to him with such innocent eyes, calling him uncle before she was sealed away for her own safety. Back in the present, the pod opens completely, revealing her sleeping form, and just like that, her eyes snap open, staring blankly at the ceiling above. Both Luru and Gran are completely taken aback by her sudden awakening. But Gran immediately senses a dangerous aura, screaming at Luru to get back, right before a blast of demonic energy sends the warrior flying across the chamber. Luru turns to see Iris sitting up, her hand glowing, and demands to know what she's doing. Our boy is completely stunned, unable to process why she would attack his friend. She just glares, her hand crackling with power, making it clear she's responsible. As a memory of his human family flashes through his mind, Iris calmly steps out of the pod. This reunion is cut short by a cold, hard fact. Humans and demons have always been enemies. Iris glares down with pure contempt, muttering the word human like it's a curse, and immediately forms a ball of demonic energy, declaring he should just die. Luru's mind races, remembering the endless cycle of humans and demons killing each other, leaving him completely caught off guard by her immediate hostility. Turns out, her memories of the war are flooding back with a vengeance, a time when both sides were locked in a brutal, unending conflict. And now, she sees Luru as just another enemy to be destroyed, screaming for the human in front of her to die as she powers up her attack, unleashing a massive blast of purple energy right at his face. But then she stumbles, crying out for her uncle, clearly confused and grieving. Convinced that Luru is the one she needs to get revenge on for her loss, a single tear rolls down her cheek, her rage fueled by sorrow thousands of years old. Luru, however, just casually raises a hand, effortlessly deflecting her attack. He even compliments her, noting that her magic has gotten a lot stronger, before explaining that back when he was the Demon King, he had a little party trick, using his magic to create little glowing orbs to play with all the demon children. He recreates that same swirling vortex of harmless magic right in front of her. This familiar pink droplets gently floating around as she stares in disbelief, and her eyes well up with tears as the memory finally hits, letting her whisper, "Uncle." Luru just gives a small, sad smile, finally getting through to the girl he came to save. This memory of him bringing his younger self to see her finally clicks into place, and her eyes well up with tears as the realization sinks in after all these years. Without a second thought, she stumbles forward, completely overwhelmed by emotion, throwing herself into his arms in a tearful hug, finally reunited with her uncle. Luru just holds her, awkwardly noting that being the same height is a little strange. Amidst the heartfelt reunion, he peeks over her shoulder to check on the guy she just blasted. Turns out Gran is fine, just knocked out cold from the surprise demonic energy blast. Luru can't help but be impressed. Her magic output is now on par with a trained soldier, which is a massive upgrade from the kid he remembers from before the war. For now, though, all that power is just being used to sob uncontrollably on his shoulder. This embarrassment finally hits her, and Luru is just soaking in the moment, absolutely loving it. She tries to justify her attack, claiming she was preparing to avenge his death this whole time. Then she pauses, as the very obvious inconsistencies finally start to register in her brain. Iris asks why he's suddenly a kid and why his voice sounds completely different, spiraling into a panic about the war and what year it is, while Luru just tells her to chill. He promises to explain everything, and she immediately apologizes for her little freakout. But before the history lesson, she remembers the human she just yeeted across the room. She asks if Gran is a friend, and Luru confirms she'll definitely need to apologize later. He admits they only just met, but assures her that Gran is a genuinely kind person. Then Luru suggests they just blame it on an accident, a plan she finds absolutely genius. Luru glances over at the unconscious Gran, figuring it's best he stays down for this particular chat. so he invites Iris to sit down for a long overdue catch-up session. She's absolutely beaming, ready with a millennium's worth of questions for her uncle. They get comfortable on the hibernation pod, with Luru trying to figure out where to even start. He decides to rip the band-aid off, asking if she'd believe he was the Demon King, and she doesn't even blink. In fact, she tearfully declares that her uncle is her uncle, no matter what he looks like. Our boy is a little surprised by her immediate and total acceptance of the situation, and when he asks how she's so certain, she reminds him of the magic orbs he created, revealing that only the true Demon King could ever control that specific type of magic. Luru teases her, suggesting another demon named Bacchus could do it, which gets a flustered reaction. Turns out Bacchus was her dad, and she admits his mana control was famously terrible. She continues down the list, noting that another old demon was far too obsessed with research to show off. This mention of another old comrade, Rome, brings a fond, nostalgic smile to Luru's face. He gets lost in the memories for a second, admitting they were always a chaotic bunch. It's dawning on him that he cared about his old brethren way more than he ever thought. Iris apologizes for bringing up painful topics, but Luru says he's just glad to hear their names again. He even feels a sense of relief, finally getting to reminisce after thousands of years alone. But after the sentimental moment passes, a very logical inconsistency pops into her head. She points out that he's very obviously a human kid now, demanding to know what's going on. Luru is left stumped, trying to figure out how to explain his own reincarnation story. Luru remembers Iris never hated humans, which makes her recent outburst all the more confusing. He holds her hand, guessing she's just struggling to accept his new human form, so he decides to just drop the bomb and tell her he was actually reincarnated. This absolute bombshell just hangs in the air between them for a moment, leaving Iris completely stunned, barely able to process the very concept. He explains that after his death as the Demon King, he was reborn into a human body. Luru confirms it with a confident little smile, enjoying her total shock. Our boy even adds that his new life comes with a human mother and father, and Iris just listens silently as he describes them as genuinely kind people. Hearing this, a wave of relief washes over her, and she actually cracks a smile. She figures if he's happy living as a human, she has no reason to hate them anymore. Turns out her whole purpose was avenging him, a plan that got a little violent. She immediately backpedals, insisting she didn't do anything that horrible, while Luru looks unconvinced. Her definition of not horrible apparently involved gathering demons to annihilate the human army, and leaving threatening notes under soldiers' pillows, which Luru deadpans as textbook violent. But her story gives him a crucial clue. If she gathered demons, their race isn't extinct. He immediately points out that if demons are still around, humans would be hunting them down. Iris's expression darkens, confirming there was indeed a demon hunting campaign before. It was a full-blown crusade led by the church, and things got incredibly ugly. She admits they would have been totally eradicated, making Luru wonder why the campaign ever stopped. Iris explains that humanity's unified crusade against the demons suddenly ground to a halt, clarifying that they didn't stop by choice. They were physically unable to continue. Turns out, humanity fractured into two factions, the church and followers of the hero who killed him. Luru is completely floored by the news that the hero had his own dedicated followers. A flashback confirms the hero did indeed keep her promise, ending his past life for good. Iris points out the delicious irony. The very people who killed him are now protecting the remaining demons. When Luru asks what happened to humanity after that, she admits she doesn't know. During her one-demon guerrilla war, she was captured and woke up sealed in the pod. Our boy is baffled, wondering who could possibly capture her without taking any damage. Her only clue is that it was a woman using a magic device to hide her identity. Regardless of the motive, she's actually incredibly grateful to whoever sealed her away. After all, that's the only reason she was able to see her beloved uncle again. Luru is clearly moved by her heartfelt confession, looking at her with soft eyes. Overcome with emotion, she clutches his shirt, just happy to be near him again. Iris confesses that the time she spent with him was the happiest she's ever been, flashing back to how he always made time to visit and celebrate her birthdays. Then she recalls the crushing despair she felt upon hearing the news of his death. Burying her face in his chest, she whispers that this whole reunion feels like a dream. Through her tears, she begs him not to overexert himself again, and he gently apologizes. He comforts her, saying that since he's human now, he'd be happy if things just stayed peaceful. Iris's next big worry is a practical one. How can she stay by his side now that he's human? But Luru immediately pivots, asking if any other demons know about his reincarnation. He gets a dead serious look, telling her to listen very carefully to what comes next. Our boy has to drop the bomb that the entire era of demonkind is completely over. A whole millennium has passed since she was sealed, and the world has changed entirely. This grim reality sinks in as she confirms he means their entire race was annihilated. Luru clarifies that a few might still be alive, but they're now treated as ancient legends. A shadow crosses her face as she quietly processes this devastating news. Before she puts on a brave front, claiming she's used to losing the people she cares about. Her saying she's used to it clearly bothers Luru, who knows exactly what she went through. Flashing back to when she was just a kid, forced to watch her friends get killed in the war, he clenches his fist, filled with a deep regret for failing to protect them all back then. All he can do now is apologize for the hell she had to endure because of his death. But Iris just gives him a soft, reassuring smile, telling him it's all right. She stands up, insisting that he gave it his all as their king when it mattered most. In her eyes, the demons wouldn't have survived nearly as long without his leadership. He wasn't just their ruler, he was something far more important to all of them, declaring with a radiant smile that he was, and still is, her one true hope. Her absolute faith leaves Luru stunned, his thoughts drifting to her father, Bacchus. He silently tells his old friend that his daughter has grown up to be truly splendid. Iris is still hung up on the whole demons are legends thing, worrying that she'll be captured on sight, but Luru tells her not to sweat it. He points to Gran, explaining the guy she just blasted is already adventuring with an ancient being, and even he didn't realize he was facing a demon, since it's not exactly public knowledge. Luru's biggest hurdle is actually persuading his mom to let them all live together. Right as Gran finally starts to stir, groaning that the demonic blast hurts like hell, he groggily looks over to see Luru and Iris just casually chatting away, with Iris pitching the brilliant idea of becoming his housemaid, which Luru is absolutely not on board with. That's when the memory of her attack hits Gran, specifically the terrifying bloodlust in her eyes. And noticing he's finally up, Luru casually calls out to the very confused warrior. Gran stumbles to his feet with his sword drawn, demanding to know what the hell is going on. Iris, for her part, just gives him a completely dead-eyed, unimpressed stare. So the warrior repeats his demand for answers, not appreciating the silent treatment one bit. After a tense moment, Iris finally breaks the silence with a thoughtful, "Ah!" Luru quickly jumps in, assuring a very confused Gran that it was all a misunderstanding. He's still completely lost, but has to admit her terrifying killing intent has vanished. He then turns to Iris, asking for a direct explanation for the unprovoked attack. She sheepishly explains it was just a classic textbook case of mistaken identity, clarifying that for a moment he looked exactly like an enemy of someone she holds very dear. She finishes with a heartfelt apology, leaving the poor guy completely speechless. Gran puts the pieces together, assuming her terrifying power is fueled by a quest for vengeance. Luru makes a dry remark about life being tough, while Iris does her best to look apologetic. After a tense moment, the warrior just decides to accept the absolutely wild explanation, generously chalking up his near-death experience to a simple, understandable accident. Luru and Iris share a quick, triumphant glance, their little performance having worked perfectly. She then lays on the politeness with a formal thank you, which just makes Gran uncomfortable. This next logical question is what to do with her, and Luru already has a plan in mind. He spins a sob story about Iris being an orphan who was trapped in these ruins by an enemy, suggesting she could live in their village, and Gran agrees it's better than the city slums. With everyone on the same page, the newly formed trio decides to head out together. As they leave, Luru touches the ancient stone, feeling a deep, unspoken connection to the place. He casually wonders aloud if it's an old demonic ruin, playing dumb for Gran's benefit. Internally, however, he's absolutely certain this place is tied to his past life. Looking back at the massive structure, he's just grateful it's what brought him back to Iris. For years, he's had to hide the truth about being the Demon King from everyone. But now he finally has someone he can confide in, the only other one of his kind. Iris gives him a knowing little smile, and a huge weight lifts off his shoulders. Gran interrupts the moment, saying they should come back with Yumi for a proper investigation. He's absolutely buzzing with excitement, realizing this discovery is going to make them all busy. Luru playfully teases him about the impending fame, pretending to be completely envious of the warrior. Gran immediately shuts that down, pointing out Luru will be just as famous for the discovery, and Iris chimes in, agreeing he deserves recognition for exploring the ruins with them. Luru argues that no one would ever believe a 7-year-old kid found anything important, but Gran just grins, promising he'll personally spread the word until everyone does. Our boy immediately starts panicking, knowing Gran and Yumi are terrible at keeping secrets, especially since their legendary drinking habits mean they'll spill everything at the tavern. He's not exactly trying to hide, but having Demon Lord on his public record is a bit of a problem. Plus, getting famous for his powers just sounds like a massive headache he'd rather avoid. Seeing the kid's genuine distress, Gran quickly backpedals, claiming it was all just a joke. He promises to keep his mouth shut about Luru's involvement, much to our boy's relief. Luru can't resist a little jab, sarcastically complimenting the warrior's first-rate sense of humor. With the threat of unwanted fame gone, it seems Gran really has no intention of blabbing. Luru realizes these adventurers might actually be trustworthy enough to confide in someday. He shelves the thought for later, just as the ground beneath them starts to rumble violently, and the entire ancient structure they just left begins to spectacularly collapse behind them. Within seconds, the entrance is nothing but a pile of dust and rock, blocking any return. Gran just sighs, casually mentioning that catastrophic property damage is a regular occurrence with Yumi. He explains the rubble is actually scattered parts of a magic machina used for the village harvest. Iris points out that at least they can salvage the parts, which Gran grudgingly accepts as true. But she trails off with a thoughtful expression, sensing there might be more to this story. Gran smirks, predicting Yumi is going to be in tears over her busted harvest machine. As they make their way through the woods, the group finally closes in on their destination. Luru admits he's a bit nervous to meet Yumi again, which is fair, considering what he did. Our boy recalls how he casually rewrote her supposedly great barrier spell without breaking a sweat. Arriving at the glowing magical field, Gran casually announces their return to whoever's inside, and Luru immediately spots Yumi, who is radiating an absolutely terrifying amount of angry magic. Her face is a perfect picture of pure, unadulterated rage, clearly not happy to see them. This trio finds themselves standing before the furious elf mage, who's still contained by her own spell. Yumi's eyes are completely blacked out with fury as she glares down at the kid who messed with her work. She immediately unleashes a verbal smackdown, blasting him for running off alone and rewriting her magic. Luru desperately looks to his companions for backup as she keeps yelling about her now useless barrier. This warrior just shrugs, explaining to a very calm Iris that once Yumi starts, she's basically a force of nature. Meanwhile, Iris is having the time of her life, finding it nostalgic to watch her uncle get chewed out. Yumi demands to know if he's even listening while Luru just stares blankly, completely zoned out. She lectures him on the very real danger he was in, pointing out he could have been swarmed and killed. Finally getting through, Luru bows his head in apology, having received the message loud and clear. Her anger fading, she adds that she made sure the other kids he was with got home safe. She also covered for him with his parents, telling them he was with Gran so they wouldn't worry. After leaving him to fill in the rest of the details, Luru meekly thanks her for the save. He then asks her to drop the barrier, but she admits she's tried and she's completely stuck. While Yumi is stuck ranting, Iris casually places a hand on the magic barrier, and with a single touch, the supposedly unbreakable spell completely shatters. Yumi is left completely speechless, unable to process how her magic was just dismantled. Before Iris gives Luru a sweet smile, checking if he's alright with her little display. Luru can only stare at his loyal subordinate, while Gran and Yumi are just completely shell-shocked. With a smug little wink, she explains it was just payback for Yumi yelling at her king. Our boy complains she could have stepped in sooner, but Iris admits Yumi's anger was justified. Having seen enough chaos for one day, Gran decides they should all just call it quits. He offers to take the kids home, telling the still fuming Yumi to head on to the inn. She's not letting them off the hook, though, demanding a proper explanation tomorrow. With that settled for now, the newly formed trio sets off for Luru's home. As they make their way through the village, they spot someone waiting for them up ahead. Turns out, it's his mother, and from the look on her face, she is not pleased. Our boy immediately breaks into a cold sweat, realizing he's in for round 2 of scolding. Her face is a terrifying mix of relief and barely contained parental rage. She cuts right to the chase, asking the one question he really didn't want to answer. He tries to play it cool, saying he was just out exploring the nearby ruins, which is the wrong answer, earning him a swift slap from his worried mother. With tears in her eyes, she tells him how scared she was, leaving Luru speechless. This poor woman is shaking, completely overcome with the relief of having him back safe. His mom pulls him into a desperate hug, completely overwhelmed with relief, and she tearfully explains just how terrified she was that something had happened to him. Luru apologizes but insists he had a very good reason for running off into danger. She tearfully admits that deep down she knew he must have had a reason, and just accepts that some things simply can't be helped when it comes to her son. With the scolding over, she turns to Gran, asking if Luru was at least helpful out there. This warrior immediately backs him up, explaining a rogue magic machine was about to attack, and if Luru hadn't stopped it, the village would have suffered some serious damage. His mom is baffled by his strength, while Luru wisely decides to keep his mouth shut. That's when her eyes finally land on the unfamiliar girl standing beside them, and she asks who Iris is, pointing out she's not from their village. Iris gives a perfectly polite introduction, completely disarming the situation with her manners. She launches into the cover story, claiming she was found asleep in the ruins after being saved. Iris lays it on thick, spinning a tale of losing a loved one and falling into an enemy's trap. This story hits its mark, with his mom realizing the poor girl is probably an orphan now. Completely won over, she pulls Iris into a hug, feeling terrible for her tragic past. She immediately offers to let Iris live with them, solving the housing problem instantly. Iris plays the part of the modest orphan, politely refusing the incredibly generous offer. His mom isn't taking no for an answer, putting Luru on the spot for his opinion. Our boy is internally panicking. He planned to persuade her, but she just did it for him. Luru's mom is completely sold on the act, immediately asking Iris to officially become her daughter. And she's already planning to write to his dad, Patrick, certain he'll be on board with the adoption. Iris is completely caught off guard by the sudden escalation, looking to his mom for confirmation, who just doubles down, encouraging the girl to start calling her mother right away. After a moment of hesitation, Iris stammers out the word, sealing the deal on the spot, and his mom is absolutely overjoyed, scooping her up and officially welcoming her to the family. Iris shoots Luru a desperate look, silently asking him what on earth she's supposed to do now. Our boy just gives her a resigned look, basically telling her to roll with it at this point. Gran chimes in that it's a huge win for her, since becoming a noble's daughter is no small feat. With the family drama settled, he tells Luru to meet him at the inn tomorrow for a serious talk, while his mom is already doting on her new daughter, completely oblivious to the adventurer's concerns. This new family unit waves goodbye to Gran, who heads off for the night. Iris can't help but tease Luru about suddenly becoming his sister, much to his annoyance. For now, though, everyone is just relieved that the day's chaos is finally over. This next morning, Luru and Iris arrive at the inn, a little late for their meeting. Inside, Gran and a very impatient-looking Yumi are waiting for them at a table. Yumi cuts right to the chase, looking like she's ready to start the interrogation. This four of them sit down together, the atmosphere already feeling pretty tense. And Luru tries to play dumb, asking what this is all about, but Gran isn't having it. He gets straight to the point, demanding to know how a kid like him rewrote Yumi's barrier magic. Luru agrees to talk, but only on the condition that they swear to keep his secret. Yumi immediately promises to keep her mouth shut, but our boy can already sense the deception. He flat out calls her a liar, revealing he's already cast a lie detection spell in the room. This elf mage scoffs, sensing no magic, so Luru cheekily suggests they test it out. She answers a few simple questions about her favorite food and best friend, only for Luru to realize every single answer has been a complete and utter lie. Yumi is left completely stunned, finally understanding his magic is actually working. She tries to save face, but Luru points out she still intends to tell at least one person. Turns out, adventurers have a professional duty to report everything to the guildmaster. Our boy refuses, explaining he'd have to cast a contract spell just to ensure their silence. Gran smirks, telling Yumi this is exactly why he warned her not to underestimate the kid. This elf mage confesses she was just trying to get a better read on his character. And Luru just grins, pointing out that her promise to keep the secret was, ironically, the truth. She clarifies she'll try to keep it quiet, but the guildmaster could force her to speak up. Luru then offers a simple solution. Teach him contract magic so he can bind her himself. Yumi immediately backs down, deciding that reporting his powers sounds like a massive headache. She finds a loophole. If she's magically bound to silence, she can't possibly report it. Gran admits he never planned on telling anyone anyway, especially since they got no reward. Our boy is just amused by their carefree attitude, thinking a little omission is fine. Just as he thought, he turns to Iris, who confirms she'll follow his lead completely. With everyone on board, Luru decides to make things official with a contract spell, and he begins the incantation, formally notifying Gran and Yumi of the binding terms, making it crystal clear that the secrets he and Iris share are not to be repeated, which is magically visualized as Yumi being gagged by chains, a bit on the nose. And with the spell complete, the two adventurers are now magically bound to silence. Now that the magical NDA is signed, Luru finally gets ready to spill the beans, casually dropping the bombshell that he and Iris are in fact ancient demons. Both Yumi and Gran are left completely speechless, trying to process this insane revelation. But Yumi quickly recovers, sarcastically asking if he really expects her to buy that, to which our boy just shrugs, admitting he has no clue what a normal reaction would be. This elf mage starts losing it, realizing they're basically sitting across from mythical legends, explaining that ancient demons are considered nothing more than exaggerated myths and delusions. So naturally, she demands some kind of proof, which Luru admits is a little tricky. He then points to his ability to casually rewrite her magic as some pretty solid evidence, a fact that leaves Yumi completely flustered because he's absolutely right. Even Gran is stunned, admitting he knew the kid was special, but not a literal demon lord. This warrior then pokes a hole in the story, pointing out Luru's well-documented noble lineage, asking how a boy from a known family tree could possibly be an ancient demon, which forces Luru to explain the concept of reincarnation, a uniquely demonic trait, and he cleverly pivots by reminding Yumi of their earlier chat about what she'd want to be reborn as. Yumi gets all starry-eyed, calling the concept of rebirth romantic and gushing about circulating souls. And Luru notes that she's surprisingly close to the truth, even if she's missing the context. He then clarifies he's not an ancient demon in his current form, just to add to the confusion, but rather the soul of one reborn into a human body, a convenient little loophole. This revelation completely shatters Yumi's worldview as she realizes the myth is actually real. Luru drops another bomb, explaining that he and Iris actually knew each other in their past lives. Gran's brain finally starts connecting the dots, realizing the implications of this whole reincarnation deal, and he asks Iris if her sob story about avenging a loved one was just a complete lie. She insists every word was true, especially the part about losing someone incredibly important to her. Then she points right at Luru, revealing he's the lost loved one she was talking about all along. To clear up Gran's very confused expression, Iris explains Luru was a close friend of her father. A flashback shows her past self with her dad and the former demon lord, who apparently doted on her. She admits that even back then, she held a deep and profound admiration for her powerful lord. Her story takes a darker turn as she recalls the constant state of war they all lived in, with Luru always on the front lines, fighting in the most brutal battles of that era. She tragically recounts how none of his loyal subjects could be there for him in his final moments. This loss fueled her all-consuming desire for revenge against the entire world that took him from her. Unfortunately, her vengeance tour was cut short when she was captured and sealed in the ruins. Gran immediately feels like a total jerk for doubting her, offering a sincere apology for his suspicion. Iris just clarifies that her story wasn't a lie, just a very carefully edited version of the truth. Gran cuts in, saying he's grateful for the honesty, but he still has one last question, admitting he can accept the ancient demon part, but he's hung up on the subject's detail. And Yumi finally connects the dots, realizing it sounded like Iris was serving Luru. To which our boy just confirms that yes, he once commanded every single demon in existence. He then drops the final bombshell, revealing that in his past life, he was the 100th Demon King, and he even gives his full, ridiculously epic name just to really sell the whole thing. Yumi completely short-circuits, unable to process that this little kid was a literal Demon King. Luru cheekily tries to downplay it, insisting the title isn't really that important right now. which only makes the elf mage freak out even more, yelling that it's a massive deal, because that's not exactly a minor detail you just casually leave out of a conversation. She desperately turns to Iris for confirmation, who just calmly verifies the entire story is true. Iris even starts gushing about his old power, mentioning he once blew a hole through a mountain, while Gran recalls a story about a human swordsman, but Luru just gives him a knowing smirk. This warrior gets serious again, demanding to know why Luru is telling them all this. Luru's reason is shockingly simple. He just wants to be upfront so they can all get along. He explains that while he's a reincarnated king, he's currently stuck as a 7-year-old kid, and since he's grown attached to the village, he needs a way to gather info on the outside world. Gran immediately gets it. Our boy is asking them to be his personal information network. Luru clarifies it's less of a job and more of an invitation to visit and drink with him sometimes, adding that their visits might even lead him to his next set of companions, much to Gran's disbelief. Luru just smiles, saying he's not exactly looking for a couple of walking encyclopedias, and he lays on the charm, explaining he just wants some people to talk to once in a while. Gran seems genuinely touched by the kid's directness, admitting he doesn't mind the idea. But then he pulls a classic bait and switch, holding up a finger to stop the conversation. He lays down the hard truth. As adventurers, they can't just visit for free without some kind of reward. So, the warrior proposes one simple condition for their continued friendship. His big pitch is for Luru to join their clan, which is a pretty bold move. After a moment of confusion, Gran explains it's just a mutual support network for adventurers. A handy little chart breaks down the system. Parties form clans under the main guild's banner. Apparently, their main purpose is to help train rookies and share knowledge among members. Luru points out the obvious age restriction, but Gran clarifies he's planning for the future. When asked which clan they're in, the warrior casually admits they haven't actually joined one yet. His solution is simple. They'll just build a brand new clan from scratch by the time Luru's 14. Our boy realizes this isn't an attempt to exploit him, but a genuine chance to learn from pros. With a sly grin and a finger gun, he confidently agrees to the terms. He makes a formal promise to join their future clan once he's old enough to register as an adventurer. Gran happily accepts the deal, raising his hand to make it official. He's already hyping up their future crew, promising it'll be legendary, with Yumi looking smugly on. Iris chimes in, cheekily reminding Gran that she'll be an adventurer in 7 years too, calling him uncle. Luru seems to agree, but then his expression shifts as he turns to Iris with a serious question. Luru lays out his new quest for Iris to find out why he was reborn as a human. He then formally invites her to join him, his old demon king aura backing up the offer. Iris is completely overjoyed, pledging her undying loyalty to follow him wherever he goes. Our boy brings up the first major hurdle, getting permission from his very human parents. He's pretty sure they've already noticed he's restless, but he has no idea how to break the news. Right on cue, his mom calls him for dessert, her timing a little too perfect. And as they sit down for some fruit tart, Luru is still trying to figure out his approach. His mom cuts right to the chase, bluntly asking if he's planning on leaving the village. Luru is completely stunned, stammering about how she could have possibly known that. Turns out she's always sensed he was looking for something far beyond their quiet home. He realizes his brooding over a past he can't return to was written all over his face. His mom says she's fine with it, but warns him that his father, Patrick, is the real challenge. Iris gets a little worried, but Luru clarifies his dad isn't a bad guy, just intense. This man is a strict swordsman with a quiet strength, making his approval a very tough sell. His mom even jokes about whether he'll have to beat his dad in a duel to get permission. Luru admits he'd probably lose right now, while Iris just enjoys her cake, amused by his predicament. She reflects on the sheer weirdness of her former lord being raised in such a normal, loving home, a stark contrast to the regret and loss she remembers from their past lives, which leads her to a sudden realization about his current family dynamic. Luru asks his mom if she does all the cooking, and she happily confirms it's by her own request. This next morning, Luru's mom hands him his lunch for the day, and she asks if he's planning on playing with his friends, Rusty and the others. She then suggests he should introduce Iris to the local kids, which he agrees to do. And to Iris's complete shock, his mom has a lunchbox prepared for her too. When the former demon tries to offer help, she's just told to go have fun. Iris is left a little overwhelmed by this whole caring parent situation. Later, Luru introduces Iris to his friends, casually calling her a new member of the family. He points out his childhood crew, Rusty, Me, and Yuri, who all seem a bit wary. Iris internally marvels at how well her former demon king has blended in with humans. This red-haired boy, Rusty, shyly reaches out his hand to greet her, which triggers a traumatic flashback of people screaming about cursed, silver-haired demons. She reflects on how much the world has changed over thousands of years, realizing this new era is nothing like the one she left behind, just as Gran said. Deciding to trust this new world, she accepts the handshake, hoping to move past old hatred. For a second, it seems like she's finally processing this peaceful new reality. But then she notices the other two kids are giving her some seriously hostile looks. She wonders if they still hate demons, but then realizes the problem is something else entirely. Luru, ever the social genius, just wants to go practice swordsmanship with Rusty, and with that, the boys all take off, leaving the girls standing there. Iris is left looking a bit lost, clearly not yet accepted by the local kids. Mi calls Iris out, asking why she and the other girl were giving Rusty the death stare, and the two of them get instantly flustered, clearly not expecting to be put on the spot. Turns out, Mi thinks Iris is just completely oblivious to Rusty's very obvious crush on her, and she spells it out. The boy was blushing like a tomato because he thinks she's cute. Yuri gets all protective, warning Iris to leave Rusty alone if she's not actually interested. But Iris just finds the whole thing amusing, letting out a little giggle. Maya's not impressed by the laughter, so Iris apologizes, clarifying she wasn't making fun of him. She just admits that maybe she was being a little dense about the whole situation, before dropping the real bombshell. Her heart already belongs to someone else. This, of course, sends the other two into full-on gossip mode, demanding to know who it is. Iris plays it coy, mentioning he's a bit older, which Mi takes as the final nail in Rusty's coffin. Yuri, ever the investigator, immediately presses for the exact age difference, so Iris thinks of the Demon King, admitting the gap is so huge she can't even calculate it. This girls are absolutely floored, realizing she's into a full-grown man and calling her super mature. Their little brains start whirring, trying to figure out which older guy it could possibly be. And they land on the only two options they know, Gran or Luru's dad, Patrick. Without a second thought, they grab her hands, pledging their full support for this tough love romance, leaving Iris completely bewildered by their sudden and very intense declaration of friendship. She realizes her vague answer just accidentally kicked off a whole new drama club. But for a moment, she smiles, remembering she had conversations just like this with friends long ago. This whole experience reminds Iris of gossiping with her old friends about how clueless boys can be, and her new companions are already pulling her into their inner circle, immediately hitting her with the million-dollar question of who she has a crush on. This question triggers a painful memory of her past life's isolation, believing she'd lost everyone forever. Back in the present, Mi and Yuri snap her out of her thousand-year stare, already treating her like part of the crew and telling her to come hang out. Iris can't help but smile, realizing these are her first ever human friends. And the three of them run off together, their little group officially formed. More than anything, she's just grateful she gets to see her lord again. Watching Luru practice, she knows she hasn't lost what's most important. This new chance gives her the resolve to live without any regrets this time around. While watching the boys train, Mi mentions how Luru's strength caught her off guard the other day, and since Iris was stuck in the ruins, she has no idea what they're talking about. Mi eagerly recounts the tale of how Luru single-handedly took down a group of giants. This girls debate the source of his power, guessing it's a mix of his dad's talent and his own hard work. Hearing that he takes a lunchbox to train every morning gives Iris a brilliant idea, so she rushes back to the house to find Luru's mom in the kitchen. His mom is a little confused by her sudden appearance as Iris struggles to find the right words, before finally bowing her head and asking for a very important favor. She wants to learn how to cook so she can make lunch for Luru, too. Luru's mom is absolutely beaming, playing coy about what the big favor could possibly be. She's already calling Iris her daughter, saying this is a mother's dream come true, which gets Iris completely flustered, trying to explain that's not what she meant at all. And she asks if it was really okay to be called part of the family. His mom just smiles, surprised that Iris was even worried about something like that. Pulling her into a hug, she correctly intuits this Iris lost her own parents long ago. She explains that from the moment they met, she truly wanted Iris to be her daughter, leaving the former demon general completely stunned by the genuine affection. This woman continues, saying she knew Iris needed a support system and a place to return to. Kneeling down, she promises to give her exactly that, a real home, no strings attached. Iris is still processing this, but then she remembers the girl's gossip about her crush. Luru's mom gently asks why she's so surprised, guessing it's because she cares for Luru. Her theory is that a bond formed because he was the first person Iris saw in the ruins. She saw the special connection between them right away, a feeling she couldn't ignore. She then asks if Iris honestly expected to be treated like a servant without official papers. As she gently pats Iris's head, the girl is at a complete loss for words, with his mom explaining she wanted to build a home where both of them could always belong. This idea of a family hits Iris hard, a stark reminder of the one she lost. Flashing back to her life with the previous Demon King, now just a distant memory. In her mind, Luru is her king, making his parents revered beings in their own right. Luru's mom is just beaming, thinking this is exactly the kind of family she always dreamed of. This overwhelming kindness finally breaks Iris, who starts crying and apologizing for the waterworks. His mom just gives her a comforting pat, gently reminding her she still hasn't made her request. So Iris finally gets to the point, asking if she could please teach her how to cook. She explains that while her own mother taught her some things, Luru is probably used to his mom's flavors. With total conviction, she declares she wants to learn how to make meals specifically for him. Luru's mom goes from 0 to 100, her face lighting up with a brilliant, slightly terrifying idea. She agrees immediately, then pivots to discussing the kingdom's marriage laws, casually mentioning that even siblings can get hitched, which sends Iris into a full-blown panic. This woman is already in full-on matchmaking mode, offering to teach Iris the recipes she used to win over Patrick. Iris tries to rationalize Luru's kindness, wondering if he just sees her as an adorable little sister. But then it clicks. Being the daughter of a friend gives her a pretty serious strategic advantage. Now completely on board with the plan, she pumps her fists and promises to do her absolute best. Their first cooking lesson kicks off, with Iris getting right to work stirring a bowl. In the middle of their session, she gets curious and asks how his mom met his dad. His mother thinks back, recalling that their first meeting was about 15 years ago. Then she drops the real bombshell. At the time, she was working as a priestess. Iris is completely floored by this revelation, but his mom just shrugs it off like it's no big deal. She clarifies she was a traveling priestess for the End Times religion, a major faith in this era, and while her rank wasn't anything special, her job meant she was welcomed in any town she visited. Iris is a little taken aback, since she had no idea Luru's mom was a former priestess. His mom explains that back in the day, priestesses were demon-slaying holy warriors, the kind you kill on sight. This has Iris internally panicking, since she's a demon and didn't sense a single thing from her. Luru's mom just laughs it off, starting the story of how she was attacked while traveling in a carriage. While on a mountain path, her group was ambushed by a seriously nasty-looking monster. This guards with her were completely outmatched, leaving her cornered inside the broken carriage. For a terrifying moment, she was pretty sure her life was over. But then a young knight suddenly appeared, slicing through the danger in a flash. After he single-handedly deals with the threat, she's left sitting there completely stunned. He turns around with a charming smile, asking if she's all right, and she's instantly starstruck. Back in the present, she tells Iris that despite his gruff voice, something just clicked. Her first thought was, "I'm going to marry this man," which leaves Iris speechless. She clarifies it wasn't a wish, but a certainty. She just knew it was going to happen. So after thanking her hero and finding out where he was stationed, they went their separate ways, only for her to immediately request a transfer to a church near his post, much to Iris's amazement. Luru's mom insists that's the bare minimum for love, but the real challenge was just starting. Turns out Patrick was a handsome and promising knight who was ridiculously popular with the ladies. Hordes of women would show up at the fortress daily trying to pass gifts to him through the guards. While spying on the competition, she realized he was just a regular, unattached knight. In fact, he got so many gifts he couldn't even store them, so he just gave them all away. So she decided to give him something he couldn't just pass along to someone else, which led to her marching right up to the fortress guards and asking them to deliver a basket of food to Patrick from the girl he'd saved. Back in the present, she explains that he ate it and sent the container back with a letter, which was basically an invitation for a date, and Iris realizes this is a solid strategy. She gets all flustered asking if it'll work on Luru, but his mom says they're basically the same person. With a sly grin, she asks if Iris is feeling inspired enough to give it a shot, and our girl is absolutely 100% on board with this plan. His mom promises to teach her all of Luru's favorite secret recipes, kicking off their mission. A little while later, Iris proudly presents her first attempt, a basket of sandwiches. She brings them to Luru during his training, shyly admitting his mom helped her out. And even the other kids are loving it, while Iris plots her next culinary move. She daydreams about becoming an adventurer to gather ingredients for Demon Tribe cuisine. And Luru, totally charmed, asks if he can help her with that someday. This is the best possible outcome, leaving Iris blushing and completely overjoyed. After their break, Luru gets ready to train again, noticing Iris is in unusually high spirits. Turns out he's also looking forward to something, cryptically saying tomorrow is the day. This day, his dad is finally coming home from his trip. Just then, a carriage pulls up and a man with glasses steps out. And Patrick greets his son Luru after being away for a while. Luru's dad, Patrick, gives his son a knowing, slightly smile, having just arrived back home after a long trip away from the family, and he greets Luru, who is absolutely thrilled to see him again. This kid asks if he's staying long, but Patrick says he only has time for some training, which is more than enough to get our boy excited for a proper spar. Luru mentions that Rusty is also fired up, asking his dad to keep him from overdoing it. As they walk, Luru vaguely hints that a lot has gone down while he was away. Patrick then asks where his wife is, letting his son carry his bag for him. He explains she's at home making lunch with Iris, a name that definitely gets Patrick's attention. Turns out he got a letter about adopting her but has absolutely no clue why. He checks if Luru is okay with the whole situation, and the kid says he doesn't mind at all, even vouching for Iris by calling her a polite and genuinely good girl. Patrick immediately goes into full-on dad mode, teasing Luru about whether she's his girlfriend, a question that sends Luru into a panic since his dad doesn't know the full story. But Patrick just smirks, pointing out the convenient legal loophole that allows adopted siblings to marry. Luru tries to brush it off, insisting it's not about the legalities of it all, so his dad keeps poking, saying it sounds like Luru already sees her as a sister anyway. They finally arrive home, where Media and Iris are waiting to welcome him back. He and his wife share a sweet reunion with him checking in on how she's been. Patrick then turns to the new face in the family, formally introducing himself to Iris. Patrick finally meets Iris, thanking her for the welcome home meal before they all head inside. Over dinner, he starts talking shop about how magic tools are all the rage in the royal capital, explaining they're basically a status symbol for high-ranking nobles and officials. Luru listens intently, feeling good about his decision to ask Garan for help with imports. Our boy knows his dad's stories are always the kid-friendly, heavily simplified versions, though. since the real intel from a Kingdom Knight would be way too complex for him to grasp. Realizing he's not getting any state secrets, Patrick pivots back to the letter he received, and his wife confirms it's about adopting Iris, basically asking how he could say no to that face. Patrick is completely on board, saying he's heard nothing but good things about her, even pointing out how well she and Luru are already getting along, which is a nice bonus. Iris, ever the polite one, gives a formal thank you, which just charms him even more. So he promises to file the official adoption paperwork as soon as he's back in the capital. But just as everything seems settled, Luru gets a very serious look on his face, getting his dad's attention because he has something important he needs to discuss. Patrick just gives him a calm, knowing look, ready to hear whatever it is. Luru then drops his own bombshell. When he turns 14, he wants to become an adventurer. His dad's reaction is shockingly chill. He just says that's perfectly fine. He explains their noble status isn't a huge deal, and Luru can still inherit the family later on. But then he gets serious, warning Luru that the adventurer life is no walk in the park. So to prove he's ready, Patrick decides to set a little challenge for his son. So Patrick lays down the terms. By his 14th birthday, Luru has to match his swordsmanship. And Luru's reaction is a sly little smile, like he's already won this game. But his dad gets dead serious, warning him that failure means a very short career as an adventurer. Internally, Luru recognizes that look. It's the same fire he saw in the heroes who challenged him as the Demon King. With a grin, he just says he understands, completely unfazed by the pressure. Then formally vows to become a swordsman his father will acknowledge by the deadline. Patrick looks incredibly proud, fully believing his son has what it takes to get strong. His mom chimes in about making lunch for him tomorrow, keeping the family mood light, and Iris is just happy that things are going well, at least for the moment. Luru, however, is already doing a mental inventory of his weaknesses, starting with his swordsmanship. And admitting his magic control is nowhere near what it used to be, he's got a long way to go. Later, during training, he's already putting his skills to the test against Rusty, effortlessly dodging and disarming the kid with a single, well-placed step. He cheekily asks if Rusty can keep up, who's just stunned by Luru's insane improvement. Turns out Patrick had been drilling Rusty on speed, but it's clearly not enough to close the gap. Since Rusty can't counter, Luru offers to teach him a few tricks to surprise his dad later, which has the kid absolutely thrilled, while Iris watches her senior from the sidelines. From her perspective, she knows he's also secretly practicing magic at dawn when no one's around, musing that even without a kingdom to run, he's just as busy as he was back in his Demon King days. But she can't help but notice that, despite it all, he seems so much happier now. While watching Luru train his heart out, Iris feels a little guilty just sitting on the sidelines. She gets a sudden burst of motivation, deciding she needs to find a way to contribute. At that exact moment, two other village girls, Mi and Yuri, run up with an urgent favor. They look incredibly serious, catching Iris completely off guard with their sudden approach. In a shocking twist, they ask her, of all people, to become their personal mentor. Iris is understandably baffled since she's never mentored anyone in her life. She assumes they mean for dancing, but they quickly clarify they want combat training. Now, even more confused, she asks why two regular girls would need to learn how to fight. Mi explains that she failed to talk Rusty out of his adventurer dreams and he's still determined to go. So, in a brilliant display of logic, they've decided to become adventurers too, just to follow him. And to do that, they need someone to teach them how to not get immediately flattened. Turns out they already ran this whole let's all be adventurers plan by Luru a few days ago. In a flashback, we see Luru's surprise when he heard his friends wanted to join the party. They explained their goal was to keep Rusty safe, since he'd be in too much danger alone. This girls had initially asked if his dad, Patrick, would be willing to train them. And Luru figured his dad would agree, but he suggested a much smarter approach than just swordplay. He told them to focus on becoming mid-range support, which left them totally clueless. Our boy explains it means backing up the frontline fighters with magic from a safe distance. This would give Rusty more freedom in close combat, making the entire team stronger. He leaves them with the thought that since they know Rusty best, they're perfect for the job. Turns out Luru suggested her, since she's apparently strong and knows her way around magic, and Iris agrees, but not without warning them that her techniques are a little unconventional. She stresses the training will be intense, but the girls are practically vibrating with excitement. In fact, they insist the tougher it is, the better. A level of dedication that surprises Iris. When she asks why they're so committed, they admit it's all so they can stay with Rusty. They explain he's reckless, constantly chasing after anything that catches his eye in the forest. Iris listens intently as their story takes a more serious turn. They bring up the giant in the ruins, recounting how terrified they were during that whole mess. A flashback shows them cowering behind Rusty, completely helpless while he faced the danger. They've come to the grim conclusion that next time they'll just be a liability. So their new mission is to stop being dead weight and actually learn to pull their own. They need to become strong enough to protect him, a sentiment that hits Iris hard. It brings back memories of her own powerlessness, wishing she could have been stronger for Luru. Understanding their feelings all too well, she bows her head and accepts their request. She tells them she has no reason to refuse, but there's one very important condition. With a terrifying grin, she promises that since they wanted it tough, she won't be holding back at all. This girl's somehow even more thrilled, grab her hands and officially ask her to be their mentor. Meanwhile, Luru and Rusty are heading home from their own training, feeling pretty good about their progress. Rusty suggests they take it easy for now, since there's no need to rush things. At that exact moment, a voice calls out, stopping both boys dead in their tracks. That voice belongs to Iris, who's running a surprisingly brutal training camp for me and Yuri, screaming that slacking off is how you get your allies killed. A lesson she learned the hard way. Luru and Rusty can only watch in horror as she channels a drill sergeant from hell, and with glowing red eyes, she lays down her core philosophy: kill the enemy before they kill you. Rusty is so shaken he can barely speak, while Luru suddenly recognizes this unique teaching style. He realizes her entire training regimen is straight out of the Demon Army's playbook, which finally explains how Iris got so ridiculously strong in just a few years. Luru just smirks, knowing he has his own deadline to worry about, after all. In his mind, 7 years feels like no time at all, and just like that, the day he turns 14 finally arrives. Years have passed, with Iris and his mother becoming practically inseparable, and she's grown into a confident young woman watching the duel from the sidelines. Patrick stands before his son, proudly saying he's been waiting for this moment. Luru, now a teenager, stands ready with his sword, looking more than prepared for the challenge. This forest clearing is silent as the final test is about to begin. With Luru facing his father, the culmination of years of training finally here. With a confident grin, he tells his dad he's been waiting for this day too. Patrick lays down the rules were for their last match, a pure contest of swordsmanship, no magic allowed. He admits that despite Luru's growth, he could still win with raw power alone, which is exactly why he's wearing a magic tool to suppress his strength for a fair fight. Luru grins, agreeing that this will be a battle of pure skill and nothing else. Internally, he knows this is the perfect test. Mastering swordsmanship keeps his demon powers a secret trump card. Relying on anything else would completely defeat the purpose of this whole challenge, after all. Patrick looks incredibly pleased, saying that's exactly the point. He praises his son's growth, confident that Luru will surpass him someday, and our boy just smirks back, confirming that's been the plan all along. His dad seems genuinely surprised, realizing that would make Luru the next Royal Knight's instructor. With a sly grin, he adds that it'll save him the trouble of finding a successor. But he's not ready to retire just yet, since he's still got a wife to look after. Luru plays along, acknowledging the heavy responsibility his dad carries, before adding that he has a sister to look out for now, too. Patrick just chuckles, impressed that his son has finally learned how to talk back. With the friendly banter over, he grips his wooden sword, his expression turning serious. He asks if they're ready to begin, and the two take their stances in the clearing. Luru knows that despite his training, his human body is still a major downgrade from his Demon King days. He can't read his father's movements at all, lacking the data to predict his opening move, so he decides to force the issue by making the first attack himself. His plan is simple: thrust, draw out the dodge, and wait for the inevitable counterattack. That split second is the opening he's been waiting for to land his own strike, and he lunges forward, but his father's eyes widen as if seeing right through the feint. Patrick blocks the strike, but he's clearly surprised by the raw force behind it, and he's impressed, asking Luru why he's been sandbagging this whole time. With a sly grin, Luru just throws his dad's own advice back at him about keeping a trump card. Turns out our boy has been doing a lot of thinking these past 7 years, and he immediately presses the attack, forcing his dad onto the back foot. Their swords clash in a blur as Luru's expression turns absolutely predatory. Patrick recognizes the fundamentals he taught, but something is very different, because Luru's entire approach to combat is completely alien to him. His own style is methodical, like a wolf cornering a rabbit by cutting off its escape routes. Luru's style, however, is something else entirely. It's not about trapping the opponent, it's about pure, relentless pursuit, chasing them down and crushing them with overwhelming aggression. Patrick realizes this isn't logic, it's the instinct of someone with real combat experience. He's so stunned he wonders if his son is some kind of once-in-a-generation genius, while Luru is just impressed his dad caught on so quickly that this is based on experience. He's actually fused his old Demon King instincts with his father's orthodox swordsmanship, and Patrick can't believe it, since customizing a high art like that should be impossible. Shaking it off, he admits they're both hitting their physical limits anyway, so he powers up his own aura, declaring they'll settle this with the very next blow. But Luru just smiles, because he's got a special technique ready for this exact moment. He recognizes his father's technique as the absolute peak of orthodox swordsmanship, but luckily for him, he has the perfect counter for this exact move. Patrick digs his heels in, preparing to unleash his ultimate strike, and with a final shout, both father and son charge forward to meet in the middle. They both unleash the same devastating move, the single blade strike, in a blinding flash, only for Luru to wake up sometime later, completely dazed and confused. He finds himself in a tavern surrounded by celebrating villagers, with no clue how he got there. Iris is right there beside him, relieved that he's finally awake. When he asks what happened, she reminds him about the little duel he just had, explaining that he lost the fight and immediately passed out from the shock. A quick flashback shows Patrick's strike landing perfectly, ending the match in an instant. Luru just smiles, completely at peace with the fact that he was soundly defeated. He's still confused, though, wondering why everyone's celebrating if he failed his final test. Iris gently explains that this was never about winning or losing in the first place, reminding him that Rusty's crew also got demolished by Patrick but left on their journey anyway. This whole banquet isn't a pity party. It's a send-off for his own adventure. Meanwhile, his parents are getting wasted and telling embarrassing stories to the whole village, with Patrick proudly recounting how he knew Luru would be strong from his grip as a baby. Iris points out that his dad is on his third loop of the story, and Luru is just amazed. She just smiles, casually mentioning that this is pretty standard behavior for drunk people. Iris just smiles, flashing back to her own days with the demon noble, because apparently some things never change. And a little later, Rusty's crew decides to call it a night, leaving the family to their party. Luru's mom finds him with Iris completely passed out on his shoulder, praising him for a job well done, and she playfully asks if she's interrupting, but Luru insists he was just about to wake her. At that exact moment, Iris jolts awake, absolutely mortified by the entire situation, so his mom just drags the flustered girl off to bed while Luru says it was no big deal. With them gone, our boy tries to make his own quiet escape from the tavern, but his very drunk father grabs him, asking why the star of the show is leaving so early. After the women make their exit, Luru is left alone with his dad for a serious talk. Patrick checks if he's feeling all right now, and Luru confirms he's recovered from being knocked unconscious. This mood suddenly shifts as his dad admits he was hoping for an unquestionable victory in their duel, before asking Luru point-blank why he didn't fight with his full strength. Luru's shock is cut short when Patrick bursts out laughing, trying to play it off as a joke. He tells his son not to look so stunned, but his own expression is anything but lighthearted. Luru tries to laugh it off, telling his dad not to say such weird things. But Patrick's smile turns sharp as he says Luru can't fight seriously, can he? Because he's determined to keep certain things hidden, a comment that sends Luru into a silent panic. He apologizes, admitting he was saving his true power as a trump card for the future. Patrick concedes the point, since he's the one who taught his son that very lesson. Still, he looks genuinely disappointed, saying he thought Luru would go all out for their final match. Luru just smirks, realizing his dad is on the right track, but for all the wrong reasons. Since Patrick knows he was hiding something, just not the whole reincarnated Demon King thing, and technically he did fight at full strength. Unleashing his demon powers would have broken the no magic rule. So he decides to lean into this little misunderstanding for as long as he can. Besides, it's rare to see his dad this worked up, and he knows Patrick would never betray his secret anyway. Trusting that his father won't completely lose it, he decides to make a bold offer, asking for a rematch, this time with both of them using everything they've got. Patrick is completely floored by the suggestion, but Luru has a condition, insisting that his dad has to go all out for real this time too. He clarifies that he doesn't mean the I'm fighting a kid version of All Out, but a true battle with magic allowed and without that strength-suppressing tool. His dad is genuinely offended, asking if Luru is seriously mocking his strength, reminding him that he's one of the top swordsmen in the kingdom, not some random scrub. Luru just explains he can't fight seriously unless his dad does, proposing a secret dawn duel before he leaves. After a tense moment of silence, Patrick just sighs and agrees to the insane request. He warns Luru not to complain if he gets injured and has to delay his journey. But our boy just throws that warning right back at him with a grin. Patrick just cracks up, completely won over by his son's sheer audacity. He raises his mug, promising to show Luru the true power of the kingdom's finest swordsman. And as the sun begins to rise, the stage is set for their final, true battle. To kick things off, Luru decides to start their duel with a dramatic coin toss. And his dad is a little confused, but Luru explains it's just a cool way to signal the start. His rules are simple. The moment that coin hits the dirt, the fight is on. Patrick just smirks, completely unfazed and ready to go whenever Luru is. Our boy can't help but notice how incredibly confident his dad seems about this. So with a menacing grin, he decides to accept that unspoken challenge. In an instant, Luru unleashes a torrent of demonic energy, shocking his father. And Patrick is genuinely stunned, admitting he had no idea his son was hiding this much power. Luru casually mentions this isn't even his final form, which only confuses his dad more. He clarifies it's not about holding back, it's about not being able to fully control it yet. His dad doesn't quite get the specifics, but as long as Luru's serious, that's all that matters. With a nod, Luru agrees it's time to finally get this show on the road, and he flicks the coin high into the pre-dawn sky, sealing the deal. As it tumbles back towards the earth, the tension is absolutely palpable. Both father and son take their stances, auras blazing, ready to move at a moment's notice. This coin is just inches from the ground, signaling the start of their serious fight, and the second it makes contact, they both explode into action. Their swords meet in a blinding flash, unleashing a shockwave that rips through the clearing. Patrick looks completely blown away, admitting he never expected the power gap to be this small. Luru just smirks back, agreeing that he, too, still has a long way to go. Luru admits he was hoping to end this in one hit, but his dad is proving tougher than expected. So with his demonic aura flaring, he charges forward to press the attack. He winds up for a devastating thrust, a vicious grin plastered on his face, and Patrick instantly reads the move, his first instinct telling him to get out of the way. But he knows dodging is a trap. Luru's new speed means he'll be caught by the follow-up, leaving him with only one option: meet the attack head-on and knock it aside. Luru is impressed by the bold move, but knows he can't slow down for a second. So instead, he decides to take a gamble and commit everything to this one clash. Patrick moves to parry, bracing for the impact of his son's all-out assault, and for a split second he thinks he's got it, a triumphant grin spreading across his face, only for Luru's wooden sword to suddenly transform into a blade of pure demonic energy. Our boy just smirks, asking his dad who exactly said this fight was over. This new weapon slices right past Patrick's guard, sending him crashing to the ground. And Luru stands over his fallen father, confidently declaring his victory in their duel. This moment the adrenaline fades, however. Our boy can barely even stand up straight. And a little later, Patrick is carrying the completely drained Luru, who's complaining about the pain. Turns out he's been slowly increasing his magic use for years to build up a tolerance. But his dad was so strong he had to push his body way past its normal limits. Now he's paying the price with some absolutely crippling muscle pain, and he wonders if he has to go through this agony every single time he wants to get stronger. He thinks about the legendary heroes who also had to break past their human limits, and gets a little fired up, hoping he can fight on their level one day. When they get back, Iris is already waiting for the two exhausted duelists. She asks with a knowing smile just how their little secret match went. So Luru, barely able to stand, declares his victory wasn't exactly a clean one. Still, he's feeling cocky enough to claim he'd win easily in a rematch, before admitting his dad was way stronger than he'd ever imagined, which shocks Iris. She points out he rarely praises anyone, asking if Patrick was really that good. And Luru says with the right gear, his dad could have been a match for Bacchus. This name drop sends Iris into a quiet panic as Luru groans from the strain. At that exact moment, Patrick finally wakes up completely disoriented, and a slow, embarrassed smile spreads across his face as he accepts his defeat. He always knew there were stronger people out there in the world, but he definitely didn't expect his first loss in ages to be from his own kid. Patrick tells Luru not to overdo it, realizing he burned through a ton of magic. He then asks Iris how she knew, and she admits she saw them leave at dawn, explaining that she'd been waiting at the village entrance for them to come back. Turning to Iris, he asks if she's aware of Luru's true strength, and she confirms she's seen it. With a relieved smile, he says he's no longer worried about them adventuring together, reminding them that strength isn't everything and to always rely on each other. Patrick explains that even the strongest people, like himself or Gran, need allies. And he asks if Luru gets it, to which our boy gives a knowing little smile. Luru flashes back to his past life, remembering when the hero's strength alone wasn't enough, because the world is a messy place where alliances shatter and people die. Back in the present, both he and Iris promise to keep that harsh lesson in mind. Patrick just gives them a smug little grin, satisfied his point has been made. With the life lessons out of the way, it's finally time to pack for their big adventure. And the three of them walk home as the sun rises, marking the end of an era. A little later, the entire village has gathered to see the young adventurers off, with Luru's parents front and center, looking on with a mix of pride and concern. Our duo is now fully kitted out in their gear, officially ready to hit the road, and it's a proper farewell, with everyone from the village there to wish them well. These villagers know their reputation is going to spread like wildfire out there. But Luru's mom says she's not too worried since they were trained by the best. Still, she can't help but get emotional seeing how much they've both grown up. She pulls Luru into a tight hug, begging him not to do anything too reckless. And Iris gets her own hug, promising to look after Luru and calling her mother. Patrick tells them to be careful, adding he'll be staying in the village a bit longer. He gives Luru one last confident look, expecting to see him again in the capital. Just then, the carriage driver announces it's time to depart, and the journey finally begins. And with that, the carriage rolls out, officially kicking off their grand adventure. This whole village waves them off, with Iris looking particularly excited for the road ahead, and Luru finds it a little weird being on the other side of a farewell for once. Iris teases him, guessing he never had time for vacations back in his Demon King days. He just remembers how Bacchus was always the one traveling while he was stuck at home base. Back in the present, Iris asks for a quick refresher on their travel itinerary, so Luru lays out the plan. First stop is the capital, with a few small towns on the way. Looking at the map, the whole trip should take about a week with one major stop. Once they arrive, their first order of business is to register as official adventurers. But Luru thinks they should probably meet up with Gran and their old party first. Iris immediately agrees, realizing Rusty and the others will be at the clan's headquarters. This gets them both wondering if their old teammates have gotten any stronger since they last met. On another note, Luru mentions he wants to check out some antique shops for weapons, giving a cryptic smile and saying he has a bit of research to take care of. His research turns out to be a prototype magic gun he's been secretly building, which Iris instantly recognizes as a special weapon for people who can't use magic. He confirms it, admitting he repurposed some parts he scavenged from ancient ruins. Then he pulls out a second, much more intricate-looking firearm for her to see, and she assumes it's just a more complete version of the first one. But Luru shuts that idea down, explaining this one is something else entirely. Turns out he didn't even make this one, explaining Yumisu bought it off a traveling merchant. Iris is stunned someone else could craft this, especially since magic tech has barely advanced. He explains that back in the day, both humans and demons had wildly overdeveloped civilizations, and all that advanced tech just made their wars even more horrific and pointless. That's why he intentionally stagnated development, focusing on things for daily life instead. So finding a weapon he can't even identify is a massive red flag for him. Now Iris gets why he's so obsessed with researching it, and he confirms it's a total enigma. Deciding to test it, Iris attempts to channel her own magic into the firearm, pouring her considerable power into the device as it glows with a faint purple light. But it's a total dud, draining her magic without actually activating. He's genuinely surprised even Iris can't get it to work, admitting he's completely stumped too. With a smug look, Luru notes they've barely left the village and already have a huge mystery on their hands. Iris just calls him out, pointing out he seems to be enjoying this way too much. She reminds him he's always loved solving mysteries, even something as dumb as Bacchus's missing booze. A flashback shows him investigating while Bacchus fumed, and Luru now plays dumb about the whole thing. This playful mood vanishes as Luru gets serious, thinking about Bacchus. He then asks her a pretty serious question. What did Bacchus do after he died? With a sad smile, Iris admits she honestly doesn't know what happened to him. Turns out she left her father's side to travel on her own after he died, and Luru just nods. She just offers a quiet apology, trailing off. But Iris just smiles, saying she's pretty sure Bacchus survived whatever happened to him, calling him the kind of guy who was just too stubborn to be killed by normal means. Luru breaks into a nostalgic grin, admitting that sounds exactly like the hero he knew. With no way to confirm it, she just hopes that his final moments were peaceful. Their somber mood is broken when the driver announces they're stopping in the next town, and the duo snaps back to reality, ready for their first major stop. Iris immediately perks up, excitedly pointing out the window as the city comes into view, revealing the massive walls of the fortress city of Final looming ahead. Luru is genuinely impressed, admitting it's the first real city he's seen in this new life. As they approach the gate, a guard stops their carriage for a routine pass inspection. He gives their papers a quick look before smiling and verifying their entry. With that, the carriage is officially welcomed into the bustling fortress city. Luru gives the guard a little nod from the window as they pass, and the guard shoots him a friendly thumbs up in return. Our boy can't help but return the gesture, while Iris just smirks at his dorkiness. He turns to Iris, asking if she's having as much fun as he is, and she practically explodes with excitement, confirming she's having an absolute blast. Their carriage finally comes to a stop in front of a rather nice-looking inn. Luru is pleasantly surprised by the quality, mentioning he's heard the food is great too. He thinks about dinner, but with a sly grin decides it's still a bit too early for that. So he suggests they go explore the city for a bit, and Iris is immediately on board. A concerned local warns them it's dangerous for kids, but Luru just says they're aspiring adventurers. He even boasts that his dad vouched for their skills, which seems to put the man at ease. With that settled, the guy tells them to be ready for the carriage in the morning. Wasting no time, our duo heads out into the streets to see the sights. Iris is instantly captivated by the bustling city, pointing things out left and right, getting excited over everything from cute trinkets to amazing-looking food. She's practically dragging Luru along, completely overwhelmed by how much there is to see. Luru comments on how peaceful it all feels, and Iris agrees it's just like a normal city. He explains the fortress part is just a name now. It's really just a trade hub. Apparently an ancient dragon settled in the mountains, which scared off all the other monsters. This mention of an ancient dragon brings a nostalgic smile to Iris's face, and when Luru asks if she's seen one, she casually says she's met a few. As they're talking, a ragged-looking kid suddenly bumps right into Iris, a classic pickpocket move in a city this busy. Unfortunately for him, Iris's senses are way too sharp for that little trick, and her eyes narrow the instant she feels a hand on her pouch. In a flash, she grabs the thief's wrist, stopping him cold with a death glare. This kid just slumps in defeat, muttering about seeing it again. He's talking about the massive gap between the rich and poor, a reality that never changes. Luru recalls how war always left behind countless orphans they tried their best to help, and speaking of which, he brings up another organization from their past. This church, which was also supposedly helping orphans back in the day. But Iris remembers there was a pretty big catch to all their charity, since their real goal was just recruiting devout followers and cannon fodder for the war. Luru just shrugs, figuring it was still a better option than starving in the streets, noting how different the old church was from the religious groups of this new era, and Iris wonders why that powerful organization just completely vanished from history. This old church was a major player back in the day, preaching salvation through heroes while pushing a hard anti-demon agenda. Luru guesses they either faded away with the demons or split from the heroes' faction, deciding it's another mystery to investigate until something catches his eye. A massive, old-looking church standing right in the middle of the city. Naturally, our boy suggests they go take a look, and Iris is just as curious. So the two of them step through the massive doors, ready for another discovery. But the moment they're inside, Iris completely freezes, calling out for her uncle. Luru is just as stunned, his eyes locked on the figure at the front of the hall, because it's a giant, imposing statue of none other than Bacchus himself. He quickly checks on Iris, who apologizes for losing her composure so suddenly, and she admits she's the one who got overwhelmed, but Luru is still concerned for her. Iris just smiles, saying that for her dad, this kind of thing is almost expected. She's completely unfazed, and Luru is impressed by how well she knew her old man. Still, Luru is baffled as to why anyone would ever build a statue of him of all people. Iris agrees, admitting he was a fun guy, but definitely not the type to be worshipped. Luru gets a wicked grin, calling her assessment so accurate it would probably make Bacchus cry. This gets him thinking, so he asks what happened to Bacchus after the war ended, but she just assumes he kept fighting somewhere else, until Luru senses someone approaching, and a robed individual with a massive sword emerges from the shadows. Luru immediately tenses up, watching the stranger approach them cautiously, but instead of attacking, the person kneels, setting their enormous sword on the floor. She then pulls back her hood, revealing a young woman with some seriously intense eyes. Our boy is totally caught off guard, realizing she must be a priest from this church. His first thought, of course, is that her sword looks completely and utterly impractical. She then politely asks if they need any assistance, breaking the awkward silence. Luru plays it cool, assuring her they aren't in any kind of trouble. He just explains it's his first time in a church, since his village didn't have one. Turns out she's a missionary priest for the End Faith, traveling to spread her teachings. When she asks about their plans, Luru explains they're just travelers heading to the capital. Hearing this, she smiles, suggesting their coincidental meeting must be a work of fate. So Luru decides to cut to the chase, asking her about the giant statue of his old rival. She explains the statue is Apostle Bacchus, a savior who rescued the world according to the End Faith. Apparently, the guy is venerated as a saint, which sends both Luru and Iris into a state of pure shock. Iris is so stunned she could boil tea with it, and Luru is right there with her in total disbelief. Luru tries to play along, asking how he saved the world, and the priestess offers to tell them the long story. Leading them to a pew, she prepares to share a tale from her faith's ancient myths. This particular legend, she explains, dates back over 3,000 years. Her story begins with the great war between humanity and the ancient demons. This hero of humanity journeyed with two companions, a mage and a swordmaster. Their ultimate goal was to defeat the strongest of them all, the Demon King. Luru listens with a very confused look, since this story is both familiar and completely wrong. During the war, a powerful weapon was discovered that the hero failed to destroy in time. Just as all seemed lost, Bacchus supposedly appeared to fight alongside the hero. And because of his support, he's now worshipped as a saint, or so the official story goes. Luru is completely thrown, trying to process the idea of Bacchus being on the hero's side. He interrupts her, asking a very pointed question about the hero's party, wondering whatever happened to the saintess who was supposed to be with them. This priestess's face goes blank, claiming there's no record of any such person. She asks where he heard such a thing, forcing Luru to quickly play dumb. He just shrugs it off as a mix-up with another story, and she seems to buy his excuse. With the tale of Saint Bacchus concluded, she invites them to stay and pray. With her story finished, the priestess turns to leave our duo alone with the statue, but not before offering a quick prayer for their well-being, wishing the blessing of Saint Bacchus to guide them on their journey. Luru gives a polite thank you as she finally prepares to take her leave. She casually picks up her absolutely massive sword, ready to head out, and just like that, she's gone, leaving Luru and Iris to process everything. Luru asks what she thought, and Iris just flat out calls the whole legend strange. He agrees that history gets warped over millennia, but something about it feels completely wrong. Realizing they won't solve it here, he suggests they just head back to the inn. Iris is more than happy to agree, especially since she's getting hungry. Luru can't help but smirk, joking that the real Bacchus would be demanding booze right now. Elsewhere, the priestess sits by a campfire, thinking about the two kids she just met. She remembers they're heading to the capital, noting how different their path is from hers. A disembodied voice suddenly teases her, asking why she didn't just stay in the capital. She retorts that's exactly why she left. She has something important she needs to find. This voice playfully asks what it is, but she tells it to stop messing around. Her unseen companion whines that talking is its only joy, but she says it brought this on itself. A sly smile creeps onto her face, though, as she reconsiders her plans, deciding she might just stick around this area for a little while longer. This next day, a carriage continues its journey down the road. Inside the carriage, Iris muses that the whole Saint Bacchus legend just makes her father's story even weirder. Luru just smiles, figuring that hearing any news about the old man is better than nothing at all. But he's still chewing on the details of that priestess's story, because erasing the saintess and adding a mystery weapon is a pretty major historical rewrite. Plus, there was just something about that priestess that felt completely off. His train of thought gets completely derailed by the view just outside the window, and Iris is practically bouncing in her seat because they've finally arrived. Laid out before them is the massive capital city of Desierto. Luru's face lights up, totally in awe of the incredible sight. This is the place they've been traveling all this way to reach. Iris is already buzzing, excited to finally meet up with their old friends. Their driver, however, looks a lot less thrilled about the situation. Turns out the entrance to the capital is completely gridlocked with other carriages. He flags down a passing battle nun to ask what the holdup is, and she turns looking every bit the seasoned adventurer, asking what he needs. Meanwhile, Luru is sizing up all the other adventurers, wondering how he stacks up. This woman explains the whole city is packed because of a big event tomorrow, which turns out to be a public dissection of a recently defeated fire dragon. This driver is floored, asking if hunting fire dragons is just a normal Tuesday in the capital. She just smirks, clarifying only top-tier adventurers can manage that, and this one was taken down by two of the best. Turns out the dragon-slaying heroes are the Seekers of Time, a famous clan making all the headlines. Their driver politely thanks the battle nun for the info, not wanting to hold her up any longer. He even tosses her a coin for her trouble, which seems to catch her a little off guard. This driver just explains it's good business to keep his connections happy, a surprisingly shrewd move. This little gesture clearly impresses her, and she gets a very calculating look in her eye. She introduces herself as Manaka, a nun from the Himeros clan, offering her services as an adventurer. With the networking done, they exchange pleasantries and prepare to part ways. But before she leaves, Manaka glances back and addresses the two kids in the carriage, and Iris is just thrilled to hear their old friends are not just surviving, but thriving. She then cheekily complains that if their friends caused this massive traffic jam, they owe them big time. With the line finally moving again, their carriage slowly makes its way into the capital proper. After a long wait, they finally pull up to an inn for the night. Their driver bids them farewell, explaining he's heading out at dawn, and Luru thanks him for the ride. Luru looks out the window, a little bummed they missed their chance for sightseeing in the human capital. This gets Iris thinking about how back in their day, demons couldn't even set foot in human cities. Apparently, major cities were all protected by holy barriers that would instantly vaporize any demon crossing them. Yet here they are, walking in without a problem, which makes her realize humanity has also weakened. She wonders what happened to the powerful civilization that once pushed them to the brink of extinction. Luru agrees, and speaking of mysteries, he brings up the whole Saint Bacchus situation again. He figures if anyone has answers, it'll be in the capital's library, a perfect place to start digging. Luru's already planning a library trip, but Iris quickly reminds him they're here to see their friends. She also brings up the minor detail of, finding a place to sleep for the night. He sheepishly admits he got sidetracked, and she teases him for his one-track mind. She lays on the guilt trip, warning him their friends would be pretty bummed if he bailed. He's not convinced, but she points out their buddies are out there having all the fun without them. This gets her thinking, and she asks if our boy is maybe feeling a little left out. He totally is, grumbling that they're off slaying fire dragons while he's stuck traveling. Iris can't help but laugh at his little pouty moment, much to his annoyance. She just calls him adorable, which only makes him more flustered. Turns out she finally understands why her old man Bacchus loved messing with him so much. She even suggests he's more like Bacchus than he'd ever admit, earning a wine from Luru. Defeated, he agrees to put the library on hold and go see their friends first thing. This next morning, they're out and about on the bustling capital streets. It's a lively scene, with people going about their day completely unaware of our lost heroes. Luru, however, looks completely panicked despite his earlier confidence. He's now staring at a map, desperately asking Iris for confirmation they're on the right track. She confirms it seems right according to the map, but she doesn't sound too sure herself. Turns out their only clue is a crude map with a single circle and a very unhelpful note. He tries to save face by saying he wanted to go to the library first anyway, a total lie. He looks up from the map, a sudden realization dawning on him as he recognizes the area. He suddenly stops, a spark of recognition hitting him as he looks up. Before them stands a tall, slightly dilapidated building that just might be their destination. Luru double-checks the crude map, pretty sure this is the spot they were looking for. He asks Iris if this rundown place is really the base for the famous dragon-slaying clan. For a second, he's not entirely convinced, given the building's less-than-heroic appearance. But a plaque by the door confirms it. This is the home of the Seekers of Time. Iris immediately points out that the place looks like it could collapse at any second. But as she takes a closer look, she senses something else at play. Touching the wall reveals a magical barrier, one she recognizes as their friend's slightly inefficient handiwork. Luru shrugs it off, saying it's sturdy enough, and she begrudgingly agrees it'll do. With their destination confirmed, they decide to finally head inside. Luru grabs the old-fashioned knocker and pushes the door open, revealing a surprisingly clean but completely empty tavern. He smirks, noting that at least the inside doesn't look like a total dump. Turns out the entire first floor is a bar, fully stocked and ready for business. Just as they're wondering where everyone is, a voice calls out, mistaking them for customers. A girl with glasses and braided hair pops out from the stairs, asking who they are. Luru is a bit thrown, wondering if this friendly face is actually a clan member. He introduces them both, explaining their friends invited them, and she lights up, saying she's heard of them. She introduces herself as Cheon, the one who runs the tavern and keeps an eye on the place. Luru tries to make a good impression, though he's privately wondering if this girl can really run the place. But his stomach immediately rats him out with a comically loud growl. He gets all flustered, admitting they skipped lunch, and Cheon just thinks it's cute. She immediately offers to whip something up, telling them to pick any seat they like. With surprising intensity, she gets right to work on preparing a meal for them, and while chopping, she mentions their friend Gran had already told her they were coming. She even admits she was expecting someone a lot tougher, so their arrival is a bit of a surprise. In no time at all, she serves them both a fresh, hot meal. Luru is impressed by her efficiency, thanking her before he digs in. He takes his first bite, probably not expecting much from a quick meal, and is completely blown away, asking what's in it, but she just says it's all basic ingredients. He can't believe it, thinking Gran found an amazing new addition to their team. Chiffon then apologizes, explaining that Gran and their other friend, Rusty, aren't actually here. Turns out Gran is busy prepping for the fire dragon dissection, while Rusty is out on a mission. She says the whole group usually eats together, and Luru admits they arrived a bit early. But Shiffon gets a clever look in her eye, hinting their timing might be for the best. Because with the tavern closed for the day, their arrival is actually perfect. She then invites them to go watch the dragon dissection show with her. Luru and Iris are totally on board, agreeing it sounds like a great way to kill time. With that settled, she excitedly tells them to follow her so they don't miss the start. Iris whispers that Shiffon is surprisingly skilled, maybe even stronger than their friend Rusty. Luru is completely thrown because this friendly tavern keeper doesn't look like a powerhouse at all. With that settled, the trio heads out into the capital's absolutely jam-packed streets. Shiffon explains the massive crowd is because a public dragon dissection is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Apparently, tickets sold out instantly, and their friend's clan made an absolute fortune from it. This makes Luru realize they don't actually have tickets to get into the show. But Chiffon just grins, whipping out a few passes she had ready for them all along. They're not just any tickets either. They're VIP seats, and she's not even charging them. Luru notices the ticket art and asks if their buddy Gran is the one performing the dissection. Iris then asks about their other friend Yumi's, but Chiffon says she's on barrier duty instead. After all, someone's got to keep the dragon guts from splattering all over the audience. As they get closer to the plaza, the sheer size of the crowd is almost overwhelming. Luru, being on the shorter side, complains he can't see a single thing over everyone's heads. Without a word of warning, Chiffon suddenly grabs him from behind and effortlessly hoists our boy into the air so he can get a better view. He confirms he can see just fine now, awkwardly asking her to please put him down. Luru is completely mortified, realizing Iris was right. This girl is deceptively strong. They finally get a clear view of the massive arena, with the dragon's body under a tarp. Shiffon smiles, glad they made it just in time before the entire place filled up. She then points toward the stage, telling them to look, because the show is about to begin. On stage, their friend Gran is already working the massive crowd into a frenzy, and the audience is absolutely eating it up as he thanks them for coming. He then dramatically unveils the main attraction, the fire dragon itself. This thing is a whopping 15 meters long, way bigger than your average lesser dragon. And with a very theatrical pose, he announces the dissection show is about to begin. This sheer scale of the beast in the center of the arena is just staggering, and Gran is clearly loving every second of being the center of attention. He raises his blade, officially kicking off the dismantling performance. Luru wonders how they even moved the corpse, so Chiffon explains they used spatial storage. Turns out a major trading company in the capital owns the high-end magic needed for the job. He realizes that kind of tech is super rare these days, with even the military's supply gone. Meanwhile, Yumi shows off a small bag her brother-in-law made, which is all she has for now. Luru seems a little disappointed by its size, but she admits they just don't have the resources. Back on stage, Gran announces a bonus prize for the audience, free dragon stew after the show. With the pleasantries out of the way, he gets ready to make the first cut. His first target is the dragon's head, bringing the blade down with absolute precision, and Luru is immediately impressed by how cleanly the sword slices right through. Chiffon explains the blade is a katana, a special weapon forged by Eastern masters. She then tells them to take a closer look at the incision itself, because dragon scales are so tough that a cut this clean is practically impossible. Gran explains that using a sword is the only way to harvest the materials without ruining them, and the first spray of blood hits the barrier, making a lady in the front row shriek. All that precious dragon blood is being funneled directly into a massive collection bucket. So Iris asks what the deal is with the barrel, and Chiffon calls it a handy magic tool. Turns out it's for collecting water, but hey, it works just as well for this. This stuff is basically liquid gold, used for everything from medicine to smithing catalysts. Every last drop is being carefully collected, since the stuff is ridiculously valuable. With the blood drained, Gran starts expertly slicing the tail into perfect steaks, flashing a smug grin, clearly enjoying his moment in the spotlight. In almost no time, he's finished with the entire section, leaving the audience speechless. Luru can't help but be impressed by his friend's incredible one-man butchering show. He turns to say something to Chiffon, only to find she's completely vanished from his side. Down on the stage, she's waving to the crowd, announcing it's time for dragon stew. She gives a confident wink, promising everyone a meal they won't soon forget. Suddenly, the crowd is chanting her name, and Luru has no idea when she got so popular. With her team of chefs ready, she officially kicks off the cooking portion of the event. Her knife skills are on full display as she preps the meat and vegetables with precision, and all the fresh ingredients get tossed into a ridiculously huge pot of stew. She gets to work stirring the massive cauldron, looking like a total professional. Luru and Iris can only watch, their stomachs growling as the delicious smell hits them. Just as they're wondering if the stew is free, a familiar voice confirms it is, and Gran swoops in for a massive group hug, happy to finally see them. Luru immediately complains about the bone-crushing grip, forcing Gran to let them go. After the awkward reunion, Luru compliments his friend on looking well. He then asks where Yumis is, but Gran says she's stuck on barrier duty backstage. Turns out she has to be physically present to maintain it and is not happy about missing the food. Iris points out that she and her sister can cast from a distance, making Gran a little flustered. He just mumbles that their magic is built different and his old habits are hard to break. Quickly changing the subject, Gran announces the stew is finally ready for everyone. He tells them to grab a bowl and join the line before it's all gone. Luru wastes no time and takes his first eager bite of the dragon stew, and he's instantly hooked, shouting about how incredible it tastes. This whole group digs in, with Luru admitting it's been ages since he's eaten dragon. Gran asks if it was a common meal, but Luru explains demons never treated dragons as enemies. In fact, Iris clarifies it was humans who hunted them for weapon materials back in the day. Gran seems to realize is just how common dragon parts were, a new thought for Luru. Our boy then notices the ridiculously long line of people waiting for Chiffon's cooking. Gran explains their tavern is open to everyone, and Chiffon is basically a local celebrity now. But with great success comes a labor shortage, so Luru asks the obvious question, why not hire help? Gran gets a grim look, admitting he's tried, but gets cut off before he can explain why. Because a very frazzled chef immediately calls him out for slacking off with 500 people still in line. Gran just sweats nervously, admitting that yeah, the work is a little rough on so he heroically volunteers to serve the most stew, earning some much-needed praise. Meanwhile, Luru and Iris share a quiet moment, with someone pointing out how well they get along. Later that night, the whole crew celebrates back at the tavern, raising a toast to their future. Gran specifically cheers to the wild success of his one-man dissection performance, and to the journey of their newest companion, officially welcoming Luru to the team. With a loud clink of their mugs, the celebration properly kicks off. Luru looks around the bustling tavern, surprised by just how many members their clan has. Gran explains they're a medium-sized group of about 20 people, all regulars at the tavern. He even points out some beastkin, a rare sight that makes him feel a bit nostalgic. For Luru and Iris, seeing so many different races gathered together is a whole new experience. Our boy gets a little choked up, admitting this kind of unity is something he'd only ever dreamed of. Just then, a familiar voice from behind asks if they're enjoying themselves. It's Yumi's, finally off barrier duty and clearly a few drinks in, checking up on Luru. He happily confirms he's having fun and thanks her for her hard work during the show. She's glad, but admits the party feels a little empty without Rusty and the others around. Luru asks about their mission and Gran says they should be back tomorrow, hopefully. Our boy seems to be pondering their absence, noting the job doesn't sound too difficult. As Gran gets a little too friendly with the tipsy Yumis, Luru just takes in the chaotic group dynamic. Gran gets a little flustered, admitting Rusty's crew is already doing surprisingly well as adventurers. He explains their current client is a clan called the Seekers of the Age, and the whole tavern seems to quiet down as he starts telling the story. Turns out the person who actually gave Rusty and the others their mission was their own clan, which makes absolutely no sense to Luru and Iris. Luru immediately questions this, but Gran insists there's a perfectly good, convoluted reason for it. See, 3 total rookies just joined their ranks, all eager to prove their worth. These kids immediately took on their very first request to make a name for themselves. It was just a simple herb collection task, which Luru agrees is perfect for beginners. Gran says that's normally true, but the problem is the herbs grow on Nyor's mountain. Our boy connects the dots. A 2-day trip makes it way too dangerous for a simple fetch quest. Before the adults could intervene, the kids had already accepted the job and left town. So, he sent Rusty's team to secretly tail them as a protection detail, which Iris finds odd. An elf member explains sending adults would have been too obvious and would have crushed the rookie's pride. Gran adds that kids have their own honor code, so they needed a more subtle approach. This real shocker is that the newcomers actually respect Rusty's group more than the veterans. Apparently they call them Senpai and Big Brother, much to the adults' amusement. Luru finally gets it, realizing they're all part of the same generation who grew up together. He and Iris share a laugh, making a mental note not to bring this up later. This scene then shifts to a group of adventurers arriving at the local Adventurers Guild. Luru and Iris step into the guild, and our boy is surprised it doesn't smell like stale ale and desperation. Iris immediately spots the registration desk, pointing out the very chipper-looking receptionist. He confidently walks up, announcing he's here to sign up for the adventuring life. This bunny-eared receptionist stammers for a second before handing over the standard-issue paperwork. Iris, meanwhile, is giving the girl a look that could curdle milk, and Luru just asks about the forms, completely missing the silent war happening right next to him. He gets to the special skills section, which the receptionist explains is basically their professional resume. She mentions the guild usually helps newbies find a party so they don't immediately get eaten. But Luru waves that off, saying they're all set in hands over a different document instead. Turns out it's a formal invitation to join a clan, which leaves the receptionist absolutely stunned. Not just any clan, either. It's the Seekers of the Era, one of the top-tier groups around. She takes the completed paperwork, casually assuming the 2 of them are siblings. With everything in order, she gets ready to log their information into the system. And by system, she means this giant, glowing pillar of ancient tech humming in the corner. A few moments later, she cheerfully announces their registration is officially complete. She slides over their brand new adventurer licenses, their official entry into the business. Luru checks his card and sees he's been slapped with a beginner low class, which he's confused about. This receptionist breaks down the power pyramid for him, from beginner all the way up to special. She explains everyone starts at rock bottom, and Luru looks less than thrilled about it. For the rest of the nitty-gritty details, she just hands him an info packet to read later. With the paperwork out of the way, she wraps up her little orientation speech, officially welcoming Luru and Iris to the glamorous life of adventuring. To their surprise, the entire guild hall suddenly erupts in applause for the new recruits. Luru thanks her and tries to make a quick exit, but she stops them in their tracks, shoving a flyer into his hands with a little too much enthusiasm. Turns out there's a beginner's tournament next month, a perfect chance to gain some experience. He politely turns her down, explaining that public brawls aren't really their style. Her cheerful demeanor instantly deflates, a dark cloud forming right over her head. Seeing this, Luru quickly adds he might reconsider if the clan approves, which immediately brightens her up. She happily introduces herself as Aaron, clearly thrilled to have met them. As they finally leave, Iris asks Luru for his opinion on the new girl, calling him uncle, and leaving our boy completely lost for a second. He just says Aaron seems nice and energetic, totally missing the point. Iris gets more specific, asking what he thought about her assets, which only confuses him more. Luru stammers that it's not a topic to discuss with his daughter, completely misreading the room. She just sighs, frustrated that he's so dense about these things. Giving up, Iris says it was a mistake to even ask him in the first place. Just then, Luru gets a sharp jolt as he bumps right into someone, and he starts to apologize, but the other guy says it was his fault. Our boy looks up, and his face goes pale as he recognizes who he just ran into. Our boy looks up and realizes he's just bumped into Rusty himself, who just gives him a cheerful greeting like nothing's wrong. But then some other kid with a major attitude problem gets right in Luru's face. And after spotting the rookie badge, he starts chewing him out for being rude. This hothead demands an immediate apology to Senior Rusty, much to Rusty's embarrassment. He's absolutely baffled that Luru doesn't recognize their local celebrity rookie, and immediately starts hyping Rusty up as the most accomplished newcomer on the block. He then turns back to Luru, still fuming about the accidental collision, and that's when it clicks. This must be the senpai Gran was talking about. Luru tries to mumble an apology, but he's clearly fighting back a laugh, which the other kid immediately picks up on, getting even more worked up. He accuses Luru of laughing at them, but our boy just plays it off as a random tickle. Iris, ever so helpful, chimes in that he's definitely doing it on purpose, face-palming at how her uncle is unintentionally provoking the guy with his terrible poker face. At that exact moment, she seems to notice something floating past them in the air. This blonde kid, however, is still busy defending Rusty's honor, insisting he's a big deal. Luru just says he'd love to see Rusty's skills for himself, which only makes the situation funnier. As the kid yells at him to stop laughing, a quest flyer drifts right into his hand. He glances down at the paper and his jaw just about hits the floor. Holding it up for everyone to see, he shouts that this is the very quest they were looking for. This kid shoves the flyer in his face, challenging Luru to settle things at the tournament next month. Luru tries to turn him down, which the kid immediately takes as an insult and an act of cowardice. Our boy points out the tournament has qualifiers, so the chances of them actually fighting are pretty low. So the kid changes the terms. Whoever gets further in the competition is the official winner. He then hypes up Rusty again, claiming that after this, Luru will finally feel like apologizing. Luru is just thinking how this kid's hero worship is making it increasingly difficult to reveal their history. At that exact moment, the rest of Rusty's party makes a very sudden appearance. And by party, I mean two girls hanging all over a deeply uncomfortable-looking Rusty. Luru just gives them a casual wave, greeting them like it's nothing out of the ordinary. This silver-haired girl winks back, playing along with a secretive long-time no-see. Her blonde companion does the same, promising to fill him in on the details later. All the while, poor Rusty is just stammering, completely caught in the middle of this ambush. His fanboy is absolutely floored, recognizing the girls as his own seniors, Mi and Yuri. Luru and Iris share a knowing look, figuring something must have happened on that mission. As Luru suggests they head back to the clan, the kid agrees to go report the quest. But before they can part ways, he stops Luru, demanding to know his name. Our boy introduces himself as Luru and gestures over to Iris beside him. This kid, Gaia, officially accepts the challenge, reminding Luru not to forget their tournament promise. He gets all fired up, swinging the herb sacks around while vowing to stand with Rusty's crew. His teammate immediately yells at him for mishandling the quest items, much to Gaia's embarrassment. Luru comments that Gaia isn't a bad kid, just a little too reckless for his own good. Iris just gives him a knowing smile, but our boy decides to change the subject. He finally asks why she was so angry back at the guild, being his usual oblivious self. She pulls the classic "it's nothing" routine, brushing off his concern with a sweet smile. Iris claims she was just a bit anxious, a reason that makes absolutely zero sense to Luru. She quickly pivots, saying they need to hear the full story from Mi and Yuri about their mission. Our boy snaps back to reality, remembering the whole convoluted babysitting gig they were on. Back at the clan headquarters, they're immediately greeted by one of the veteran members, who says she feels kind of sorry for them, which is never a good sign. Iris is completely lost, asking what she means while Rusty's crew smirks in the background. Apparently, the other clan members have been giving them a weirdly tense vibe all day. This woman confirms it, explaining that this whole situation kicked off while Luru and Iris were busy registering at the Adventurers Guild. This scene flashes back to an elf named Yumi's bursting into the clan hall with some hot gossip. She rallies the troops, demanding everyone's full cooperation for a new scheme. Yumi's announces she has a very important favor to ask of them all. Another member asks what's got her so excited, sensing some prime entertainment is about to unfold. With a mischievous grin, Yumi's reveals she saw something very interesting at the guild earlier. She starts recounting the story of Luru accidentally bumping into Rusty, setting the stage, and how some clueless fanboy picked a fight over it, which the other girls find absolutely hilarious. Yumi's finishes her story, explaining how the whole mess somehow escalated into a tournament duel, and she calls this a rare opportunity that the clan absolutely cannot pass up, proposing with a devilish grin that they should all fully support this rivalry between Luru and Gaia. Back in the present, Iris just sighs, commenting on Yumis's predictably chaotic nature. This veteran member just gives a knowing smile, pretty much confirming Iris's assessment. Iris finally understands why Mi and Yuri whisked Rusty away, to escape Yumis's meddling. She asks if the clan leader Gran actually signed off on this, and the woman says he did. Turns out Gran and Yumis get along so well they rarely oppose each other's ridiculous schemes. But then the woman gets a bit awkward, admitting there's another small complication. She reminds Luru and Iris they were supposed to start living at the clan headquarters today. Luru immediately worries he'll be camping out, but she assures him it's not that bad. Instead, she asks if they'd be willing to stay at a completely different location for a while. Apparently, as an ancient elf, Yumi's just happens to own several properties around the capital. Luru's fine with any roof over his head, but he still doesn't understand why they have to move. This woman explains it's all part of Yumi's grand plan for full support, revealing that Yumi's wants Gaia and the others to see Luru as just another beginner. Her whole scheme hinges on keeping Luru and Iris's true status as mentors a secret from the newbies. Iris immediately gets it. If they stay at the main base, their cover would be blown instantly. Luru admits it feels a bit like deceiving Gaia, but he's not totally against the idea. He figures his good rival will just motivate Gaia to train harder, which is exactly what's happening. Luru just smiles, agreeing that a little surprise rivalry could be a good thing for Gaia. This veteran member clarifies their clan affiliation is registered, but they can just keep it a secret for the tournament. She gets a mischievous look in her eye, calling their little undercover mission romantic. Seeing no real downside, Luru turns to Iris to get her final approval on the plan. Iris is, of course, completely on board with the whole charade, giving a cheerful yes. She then gets all flustered about being with her dear brother, leaving Luru confused and the veteran intrigued. This veteran is totally eating up the drama while Iris immediately regrets her little outburst. With that settled, she hands them a map to their new lodgings, and they prepare to leave. Luru asks if the mastermind Yumi's is around, but the veteran says she's busy at the moment. Apparently, Yumi's plans to drop by later once they've had a chance to settle in. As they get ready to head out, Iris doubles down on the whole dear brother act. This veteran, whose name is Cheon, waves them off as they finally leave the clan hall. This second they're out the door, Cheon calls out that the coast is clear, and who should appear but Yumi's and Gran, who were apparently hiding upstairs the entire time. Cheon slams 2 mugs of juice down on the counter for the schemers, her expression making it pretty clear she's not a huge fan of this whole deception. Gran admits their plan is a little sloppy, and Chiffon adds it feels wrong to be tricking them. Chiffon feels like she's been roped into their mess, but Yumi's just brushes off her concerns. Yumi's points out that Luru and Iris agreed to the plan, though Chiffon still looks unconvinced. Gran then asks Yumi's if she has some kind of grudge against the duo, to which she gives a very non-committal answer. Turns out Yumi's has a personal stake in this. Luru and Iris apparently did something to startle her a long time ago, so now she's decided it's her turn to be the one pulling the strings and setting up a little surprise. Gran immediately understands that this whole elaborate scheme is just her idea of petty revenge, and he reveals with a smirk that this tournament was actually prepared specifically for Luru anyway. This scene then cuts to a formal meeting between the leaders of several major clans, where one woman in a nun's outfit looks thoroughly unimpressed by the whole gathering. She gets straight to the point, demanding to know why Gran has summoned all the clan heads and their seconds in command. Gran just casually takes a sip from his goblet, completely unfazed by her directness, before giving everyone at the table a look that promises he's about to cause some chaos. He opens the floor by asking for their honest opinions on the recent adventurer tournaments, and one of the other leaders says they're decent enough for letting rookies hone their skills. He seems to think the current system is fine, completely missing the bombshell Gran is about to drop. Gran agrees that it's not bad, but decides to cut the small talk and get to his real agenda. He then announces that he, a legendary clan leader, will be participating in the upcoming tournament himself. This entire room just about loses its mind, completely floored by his declaration, because as the nun points out, he's a special rank and the tournament is capped at the upper advanced level. Gran acknowledges he's breaking a massive unspoken rule but asks them to hear him out first. He then poses a simple question: don't they all think the quality of new adventurers has been dropping? This other leaders look at each other, reluctantly admitting that he has a point. And this old guy Blue Soltita confirms that the new generation just isn't what it used to be. Gran asks if anyone actually disagrees with his point, putting the whole table on the spot. He then lays out his theory. The new generation of adventurers just lacks any real aspiration. Another clan leader, a guy with glasses, mulls over this pretty bleak assessment. This leader, Shu, reluctantly concedes that Gran's probably right about the rookies. He explains that while little kids all dream of becoming legendary adventurers, those ambitions tend to fizzle out once they face the less than glamorous reality of the job. This nun and her vice leader can't help but agree with the grim outlook. This vice leader, Agnos, adds that most people in the capital have never even seen a high-stakes adventurer battle. Gran smirks, comparing it to a kid wanting to be a fairy tale princess, a complete fantasy. And that's exactly the stagnant mindset he plans on shattering with this tournament. This nun immediately questions if he's actually serious about participating himself. She points out the obvious flaw: a legend like him would just crush every rookie's spirit. Gran gets a smug look, teasing that he's got a very lively newcomer, which the nun calls him out for bragging about. He clarifies that while he's treating this person like a rookie for now, he's not even sure he could win against him in a real fight, which shocks the entire room. They think he has to be joking, but Gran assures them he's being completely serious. Leaning forward, he reveals the true purpose of his grand, chaotic scheme. He wants to create a legend, an unknown rookie who rises through the ranks to become a new hero for the capital. He sheepishly admits it's a bit dramatic, but asks if it doesn't sound like a good show. So, Gran challenges the other clan leaders to join the tournament too and make things interesting. This nun points out the obvious problem: if they actually get serious, the entire venue will be collateral damage. But an elf leader chimes in, saying the old clans will cooperate to raise a barrier of unprecedented scale. She's talking about an absolute shield, something not even special rank magic could hope to break. This other leaders are completely floored by this, since the old clans working together is basically unheard of. Apparently, it's a forbidden act that goes back to ancient times, a massive political taboo. Shu starts sweating, realizing this could cause a huge international incident if word gets out. This elf just cheerfully brushes him off, saying she already got permission from every clan leader. She then plays coy, pretending to wonder why all those old men approved her request so easily. Shu remembers how weirdly excited they were, while the nun just looks completely over this conversation. Gran finally cuts in, raising Lazblit to deliver his final, non-negotiable demand. He tells them all to participate in the tournament and to drag along any skilled acquaintances they have. His smirk widens as he clarifies exactly who he wants them to invite, telling them to bring out the legends, the hermits, even the people known as monsters. Shu and the nun exchange a look, finally grasping the sheer insanity of what Gran is planning. This elf leader praises them for catching on so fast, clearly enjoying their stunned silence. She and Gran share a look, both absolutely thrilled about the chaos they're about to unleash. This whole tournament is clearly going to be an event for the history books. Elsewhere, in a quiet, sunlit hall, a white-haired girl is kneeling down. She seems to be in deep prayer or meditation, completely serene. Alone at an altar in a massive cathedral, unaware of the storm brewing in the capital. A voice cuts through her meditation, startling the white-haired girl from her prayer, and a young man appears, nervously addressing her as the saintess. She turns around with a smile that's less holy and more "I'm about to ruin your day." He immediately drops to a knee, apologizing for disturbing her sacred time, but the guy is already sweating bullets as she gets closer to him. She then grabs his chin, forcing him to look up, and he just about short-circuits. Completely overwhelmed by her sheer presence, he collapses to the floor. She thanks him for coming all this way, acting like this is a totally normal way to greet people, while our boy is having a full-blown meltdown, blushing and sweating profusely. He's convinced she's a literal goddess for even acknowledging his existence. Now that he's calm, she finally asks him what the big emergency is. He hands her a flyer, which she takes with a curious expression, explaining it's for the big tournament, and this time even special class masters can join. That little detail makes her eyes wide with genuine shock, because the flyer mentions the ancient clan's absolute barrier, hinting at an impossible alliance. She knows that clan has a legendary reputation for refusing to cooperate with anyone, so why on earth would they suddenly agree to help the kingdom of Leonard now? This messenger thinks it might be a one-off for the tournament, but it could be a major turning point. Her expression hardens with resolve. For the sake of her kingdom, she has to be there. She asks if attending is possible, and her sudden determination catches the young man completely off guard. He confirms her attendance, and the saintess gives him a smile that's anything but holy. She declares this is the Holy Church's time to shine, all thanks to some divine guidance, of course. Vowing to bring absolute protection to her kingdom, she prepares to make a grand exit. Her expression is pure confidence as she thinks about the citizens she's supposedly saving. Looking out over the city, she promises to offer a prayer for their rest, which sounds a little ominous. Before leaving, she tells the poor messenger to get some rest while she consults the saint. Our boy is once again a blushing, teary mess, just grateful for her attention. He's so overwhelmed that a single kind word practically breaks his brain. Then she starts glowing, monologuing about bringing righteous light to the world, and sprouts massive energy wings, ready to ascend like a true celestial being. With one last smirk, she announces her departure, leaving the messenger behind. She zips off into the sky, leaving the poor guy kneeling on the balcony in total shock. He's left completely speechless, trying to process the holy light show he just witnessed. As a parting gift, a single glowing feather floats down into his hands. This kid is left alone, clutching his divine souvenir like it's the greatest treasure ever. Elsewhere, in a much darker place, someone takes a heavy step down a shadowy corridor. This new, grim-looking guy with white hair seems to be on a very serious mission. He knows that continuing down this path is a one-way trip with no turning back. But just as he's about to proceed, a red-haired man suddenly calls out to stop him. demanding to know what business this grim stranger has in such a forbidden place. This white-haired guy is completely unfazed by this dramatic entrance, calling it quite a greeting. His red-haired companion, Bacchus, passionately declares he's here to fight by his side. Turns out the white-haired leader came here specifically to find Bacchus anyway. We get a quick rundown. Bacchus is his only friend, a rare red-haired demon blessed by fire. But the leader immediately shuts him down, saying this mission is impossible for him. He clarifies that Bacchus can't confront their target head-on, no matter what. This reason is a certain woman with a holy aura. The saintess is on the field. Bacchus immediately starts sweating, understanding just how bad that is. His leader confirms she's a total anomaly, not even a normal human. He doesn't know what created her, maybe the will of the gods, maybe something else entirely. But one thing he does know for sure is that he was born for the sole purpose of standing against her. He claims their powers are two sides of the same coin, making their fated battle unavoidable. Bacchus argues back, insisting he won't just drop dead the second he faces her. This leader explains that while he could handle the Saintess alone if given an opening, she now has a guard who's also received a divine blessing, clad in holy armor. Bacchus is clearly struggling to process this new, impossible variable. His leader just tells him to grasp the reality of the situation, calling him friend. Bacchus is visibly torn, not wanting to accept being useless, and he can only grit his teeth in pure frustration. Bacchus begs his leader, Rhea, not to die on this suicide mission, but Rhea is dead set, claiming he can't lose this fight before leaping into the darkness. Meanwhile, in a much cozier setting, our MC is getting a rude awakening. A girl named Iris cheerfully pulls open the curtains, announcing it's morning. He groggily greets her back, clearly not ready to face the day just yet. He complains about the early hour, and she just smugly notes the inconvenience of human bodies. Iris then reminds him they're supposed to be taking on a request with Gaia and the others. That jogs his memory. He did ask her to wake him up for this. Flashing back to last night, he remembers opening his door to a new acquaintance. This girl, Gaia, brought them a bag full of groceries as a welcoming gift. He immediately calls her out on one of the weird-looking vegetables, making her blush. Turns out the food was a farewell gift from her senior, probably after she got chewed out. This MC says he's grateful, but just teaching them the ropes would be more than enough. Gaia puffs out her chest, insisting he take the gift anyway. She declares herself their senior, since they're unaffiliated and need someone to rely on. She admits her own party just did their first request, but she's got some experience from her parents. With that, she promises to teach them the adventurer rules, leaving our boy a little worried. It's true that Gaia's parents are apparently some pretty well-known adventurers, so he decides to trust her, thanking her for the help and accepting her offer. Gaia gets all fired up, but then her expression shifts with a sudden concern about their upcoming mission. Back in the flashback, Gaia lays out her grand plan to tackle a simple one-day quest tomorrow. She's absolutely buzzing with energy, declaring their new partnership officially settled. With a firm handshake, they seal the deal for their big adventuring debut. Cut to the present, our boy tells Iris he has to go, mentioning his old demon body never needed sleep. He heads downstairs only to find Gaia's entire party has already arrived and is eating breakfast. Gaia greets him with a massive grin, clearly having made herself right at home. He greets them back, and her two companions immediately start apologizing for their leader's intrusion. This cat girl introduces herself as Yu the magician, looking a bit flustered, and the calm one is Shalika the healer, who also apologizes for Gaia's general existence. Our MC just smiles, noting how these two are the polar opposites of their energetic friend. He mentally clocks their setup, a swordsman, a magician, and a healer, a surprisingly solid party. Iris then reveals she cooked the meal with the groceries Gaia brought over last night, which is Gaia's cue to immediately demand a second helping, much to her party's horror. Yu calls her out, reminding her those veggies were an apology gift for getting chewed out. Meanwhile, our boy and Iris are just enjoying the chaos, since they've never had such a lively meal. With breakfast finally over, the crew seems satisfied and ready to head out. Gaia announces it's time to hit the Adventurers Guild and get their quest started. But Iris stops them, holding up a massive stack of bento boxes she prepared for everyone. This whole party is just stunned into silence by this level of five-star service. She asks if it was too much, and Gaia immediately stammers that no, it's very, very appreciated. Gaia's entire party is practically prostrating themselves in thanks, completely overwhelmed by the gesture. Iris then hands our boy his lunch, cheerfully calling him brother-in-law for good measure. He takes the box with a small smile, clearly impressed by her next-level preparation skills. And these aren't just any sandwiches. They're gourmet tier, made to taste great even when cold. He's just thinking that Iris's thoughtfulness is on a completely different plane of existence. Our MC thanks her for going to so much trouble, but she just brushes it off shyly. Then she drops a classic line about the way to a man's heart, leaving him totally confused. Gaia's swordsman cuts in, reminding everyone they actually have a quest to get to. Iris gets all fired up, grabbing our MC's arm and calling him uncle as they head out. With that, the two of them are officially ready for their first day as adventurers. They arrive at the Adventurers Guild, which is already an absolute madhouse. Gaia points out the request board, where a massive crowd is already fighting over jobs. Our boy is a little taken aback by the sheer chaos of the place. But just as he's taking it all in, he realizes something is very wrong. His so-called mentors have already ditched him, and Iris to dive straight into the fray. It's a complete free-for-all at the board, with everyone clawing for the best quests. He remarks on the intensity, and a nearby adventurer just says this is typical beginner behavior. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he spots a familiar face in the crowd. It's Rusty, the arrogant swordsman, looking smug as ever with his two companions. But our MC quickly notices that the rest of Rusty's usual crew is nowhere in sight. This MC greets Rusty's crew, noting it's been a while since they last spoke. Rusty's companions immediately point out that our boy and Iris look like total newbies now. Turns out Rusty's got a bit of a fan club, and the attention is making him super flustered. Our boy points out the obvious. He's being swarmed, which only makes Rusty more embarrassed. He's trying to play it cool, but is clearly loving every second of the praise. This whole scene gives our MC a weird sense of nostalgia, so he asks about the guild chaos. He questions if this mad dash for quests is really just a rookie-level thing. One of Rusty's party members explains that for beginners, it's all about early morning day trips. This leads to a daily brawl over the few decent quests available, first come, first served. He wonders about a little thing called compromise, but apparently that's a high-ranker luxury. She adds that learning to fight for your spot is a crucial part of the adventurer experience. Basically, she's telling him to learn how to throw elbows without getting himself killed. Rusty then chimes in, impressed by how much the two of them have grown in just a few months. Our boy is a little stunned, wondering how they could have changed so much so quickly. Iris just reminds him that it's only natural for demons to mature faster than humans. He then asks Rusty if he's implying they're not total rookies anymore. And Rusty puffs out his chest, announcing he's officially an intermediate-level adventurer now. Both our MC and Iris are genuinely impressed, congratulating him on the achievement. Of course, the praise immediately sends Rusty right back into a blushing, awkward mess. He admits it's because he got absolutely demolished by a master in a mock battle right after leaving home. His companion thanks our boy for saving their lives, which only leaves him more confused. Rusty immediately starts yelling, demanding to know why they're just standing around. This senpai comment sends Rusty into a flustered mess, much to his party's amusement. He tries to play it cool, insisting they need to hurry up and grab a quest. With a quick apology, he grabs our MC's arm to drag him towards the board, but his party members have other ideas, holding him back for a moment. One of them says they'd love to have our crew join them for a quest sometime. But the blonde girl clarifies that's impossible right now because of Chief's orders. His other companion is confident our boy and Iris will catch up to them in no time. Rusty agrees, admitting he's had a major realization over the past few months. Turns out he knows our crew is on a completely different level, and he can't wait for Gaia to find out. Meanwhile, Gaia is in the middle of the scrum, willing to take literally any job she can get. Someone in the crowd yells back, asking her to be a little more specific, so she just screams, "herb gathering," while lunging for the nearest quest paper. Our MC and Iris just watch this whole chaotic display with a shared deadpan expression. Gaia's entire party gets swallowed by the desperate mob of rookie adventurers. With one final desperate lunge, her hand closes around their prize, sending her poor catgirl magician tumbling in the process. She emerges victorious, quest in hand, with her traumatized party members literally in her arms. Our boy just asks if this is normal, admitting he's not built for this kind of social combat. Gaia finally gets why word-of-mouth quests weren't an option for total rookies, and she's just relieved the job seems simple with no nasty surprises. Their grand mission is to head into the forest and pick a specific flower, so the whole crew gets to work foraging for starvine, a basic potion ingredient. Gaia's swordsman complains that despite their efforts, they're not finding nearly enough. He then lectures them on how everyone has to grind these simple requests first, before they can even dream of becoming proper adventurers. This lights a fire under our MC, who immediately doubles down on his gathering efforts. But Iris seems to have noticed something about their progress already. A quick look shows their baskets are practically overflowing with the herb. Yu and Shalika are completely floored by their efficiency, calling them formidable. They try to reassure the duo, saying it's just a matter of getting used to it. Our boy, meanwhile, is having a mild crisis over doing manual labor he used to outsource. He pushes the thought aside, determined to just get this over with and go home. A short while later, they've amassed a ridiculously huge bag of the stuff. This swordsman is in disbelief. They somehow gathered twice as much as his entire team. Our MC just smoothly credits their amazing mentors, which the guy eats right up. But their self-congratulations are cut short when Iris points down the road. Someone is passed out on the path, with a tiny creature lying next to them. As they get a better look, another group of adventurers walks into view nearby. Our boy checks the body, calmly telling the panicking party that no, she's not dead. A closer look reveals both the woman and her tiny companion are just sleeping it off. He decides they can't just leave them out here, offering to carry the unconscious woman himself. Iris and Yu immediately volunteer for the much easier job of carrying the dog. So Gaia's swordsman and healer move in to lift the woman onto his back, but the moment they touch her, our MC realizes something is very wrong. This woman suddenly jolts awake, sending Gaia's crew stumbling back in total shock. She starts scrambling away, completely disoriented and thinking she's being chased. In her panic, she crawls right up to Iris, grabbing her bag and demanding to know what she wants. Iris is confused for a split second before a light bulb goes off in her head. Turns out she packed an extra bento box, just in case their lunch wasn't enough. This woman's eyes go wide with pure, unadulterated hunger at the sight of actual food. With our boy's nod of approval, Iris hands over the meal to the starving stranger. This woman immediately clasps her hands together, ready to absolutely demolish that sandwich. Our crew just watches, realizing she wasn't injured, just monumentally hungry. But before she can take a bite, her little companion paws at her for its share. A massive stomach growl confirms the little guy is just as famished as she is. So she looks up at Iris, asking if it's okay to feed her kid some too. Iris gives the all clear, and the woman happily splits the sandwich with her tiny pet. And with that, she finally gets to eat, stuffing her face with pure satisfaction. This woman and her little companion are all smiles, giving a formal thanks for the meal. With the immediate crisis over, our boy finally asks the most important question: who is she? She cheerfully introduces herself as Asagiri Kyoka, but says they can just call her Kikyo. Her tiny, fluffy companion is a girl named Fuka, who looks incredibly proud of herself. Our MC notes the dog seems unusually smart, before reminding Kikyo it's not safe to linger here. He tells her they're heading back to the capital and asks what she plans to do now. Kikyo immediately jumps at the chance, asking if she and Fuka can tag along with them. There's an irresistible aura about her that leaves our boy feeling completely outmaneuvered. So he just agrees, and the party officially picks up 2 new strays for the road. Back in town, they try to find her an inn, but the receptionist has some bad news. Unfortunately for Kikyo, the place is completely booked, sending her into a state of shock. She collapses onto the pavement in despair, dramatically mourning her last hope for a bed. Just as Gaia's party returns, Kikyo starts apologizing, blaming herself for their late arrival. She then casually mentions that not being able to find an inn is a pretty common problem for her. Taking pity on her, our MC offers to let Kikyo and Fuka stay at their place instead. This offer is so unexpected it completely short-circuits Kikyo's brain for a moment. He clarifies that they're just borrowing the house anyway and have plenty of extra rooms. Kikyo bows deeply, gratefully accepting their hospitality on behalf of herself and Fuka. As they walk, however, one very important detail is still nagging at our MC. He finally asks why she was passed out on the road, and Kikyo gets instantly flustered. She sheepishly admits they ran out of inns and were hoping to find work in the next town. Even her tiny dog seems to be judging her for their poor planning and lack of food. Iris then asks where she's from, since she's clearly not a local traveler. Kikyo gets all shifty, vaguely claiming she's from the Far East. A detail our boy immediately latches onto, knowing that's not exactly a casual trip. He guesses she's from Tusho, the land of craftsmen, which makes her absolutely light up. Turns out he's seen one of their katanas in action, so he knows the legends are real. Kikyo proudly boasts that swordsmanship is one of her country's greatest arts. This gets Iris curious, wondering if Kikyo's unique outfit is also a special creation. She happily shows off her traditional Miko Shozoku, a shrine maiden's attire. When Iris looks confused, Kikyo explains that a Miko is basically a woman who serves the gods. Their main job is granting wishes and telling fortunes, leading our boy to label her a priestess. He then immediately points out she doesn't seem particularly sacred, which is just cold. Kikyo just laughs, admitting she's more of an underling than a real shrine maiden. Our boy doubles down, noting a real one probably wouldn't pass out from starvation. Despite the burn, she insists she knows how the world works, looking incredibly flustered. Meanwhile, our boy and Iris share a smug little look, completely on the same page. This next morning at their house, the smell of a delicious breakfast fills the air. Kikyo is in absolute heaven, declaring that a safe bed and good food are life's ultimate pleasures. At the table, she asks about their plans, and our boy says they're all taking a well-deserved day off. Over breakfast, our boy asks Kikyo her plans, and she just says she needs to find a job. She admits she has no specific ideas, which doesn't exactly scream well-prepared traveler. So he gets to the real question: why is a shrine maiden from the Far East out here anyway? Kikyo prepares to tell the tale of her grand, divinely inspired journey. Turns out the high priestess who raised her basically told her to go wander around for a bit. This memory alone makes her fume, recalling how the priestess called her training lacking. So in a fit of pure spite, she grabbed a bunch of supplies from the shrine and stormed out, vowing not to come back, while our crew just listens with deadpan expressions. They both immediately call her out for just running away from home, much to her annoyance. Our boy just smirks, humoring her story while clearly not buying a word of it. This gets him thinking about his own past and how Iris was once trapped by her status. He realizes that neither of them ever considered living freely until recently. In his eyes, Kikyo is that same kind of free spirit, someone who's loved despite the chaos. After admitting he's a little jealous, he pivots back to her immediate problem, the job hunt. He offers to help her find work right here in the capital, which completely surprises her. His clan runs a tavern, and a friend of his just happens to be looking for a waitress. Kikyo thinks it over, a job serving rowdy adventurers in a tavern. He even warns her that it's tough work, and most people quit pretty quickly. But she's all in, declaring that if she can handle the high priestess, she can handle anything. With her new career path decided, the story jumps forward 2 weeks to a bustling tavern. Our boy drops by the tavern, casually wondering how Kikyo's new job is going. This answer comes immediately as Kikyo nearly causes a food-related catastrophe. This sends the tavern manager into a state of pure, unadulterated rage, who confirms for our MC that yes, she is just as chaotic as always. After the inevitable crash, Kikyo kneels in defeat as Fuka approaches. Turns out her tiny dog is a far more competent waiter, balancing a tray perfectly. Fuka's smug little face is just rubbing salt in the wound for the struggling shrine maiden. Our boy just watches as Kikyo starts a one-sided argument with her own dog. It's a far cry from her interview where the manager hired her on the spot for being cute. But once she started working, it became clear she was a master of mixing up orders. This was usually followed by her tripping and sending plates flying everywhere. This sound of breaking ceramic has apparently become the tavern's new theme music. Kikyo can only sweat bullets as she senses a dark presence approaching, and the manager looms over her, radiating pure "you're fired" energy. She finally asks the question Kikyo has been dreading, sending her into a panic. Kikyo immediately starts begging, clinging to her leg and pleading not to be made homeless again. But the manager has had enough, flatly telling her mercy is off the table this time. Right on cue, Fuka steps in with the most powerful weapon known to man, puppy dog eyes. This manager's iron will immediately starts to crack under the sheer force of cuteness, and just like that, Fuka saves her disaster-prone owner's job for another day. This manager showers Fuka with praise, while Kikyo can only thank her dog for saving her job. And our boy learns the dog gets paid more because, unlike its owner, it never messes up an order. He sips his drink, admitting that since he's the one who recommended her, this is all his fault. This manager immediately agrees, telling him to take responsibility before Kikyo bankrupts them in broken plates. Still, she admits Kikyo's chaotic energy has made her weirdly popular with the regulars. But the manager has one more thing to bring up, and her tone gets a lot more serious. Apparently, a drunk patron was harassing one of the other waitresses earlier in the day, and the waitress tried to fend him off, slapping his hand away and telling him to back off, which only left the guy stunned and blushing for a hot second, before he got angry and grabbed her arm, escalating the whole situation. This manager explains that while this happens at night, it's rare for someone to be this drunk during the day. But then she gets a sly look in her eye, assuring him that everything turned out just fine. And right on cue, Kikyo suddenly blurs past them with a look of pure determination. She marches right up to the creep and grabs him by the collar, completely catching him off guard. With absolutely zero effort, she just flips the entire guy clean over her shoulder, leaving our boy completely floored, while the manager just smirks like she knew this would happen. This patron is left sprawled on the floor, utterly defeated by the shrine maiden waitress. Our boy realizes that wasn't just brute force, it was some kind of Eastern martial art that uses leverage. Kikyo then leans over the guy, sternly lecturing him about harassing people, and finishes her takedown by looming over him and demanding a proper apology. This guy gets a nice view from the floor, completely dazed by his sudden change in altitude. He quickly apologizes to the waitress he was harassing, while Kikyo plays the happy mediator, and with a cheerful smile she declares the problem officially solved, just like that. This manager tells Luru she had no idea her clumsy waitress was also a martial arts master. She admits Kikyo has a weird talent for making things okay, and our boy can only agree. Turns out having an accidental bodyguard on staff is actually a huge plus for the tavern. So she thanks Luru for bringing her this chaotic but useful new employee, much to his surprise. But then her expression shifts and she gets a very mischievous look in her eye, asking if he's supposed to be on a date with Iris right now, which totally flusters him. She just casually repeats the question, clearly enjoying watching him squirm. Luru is completely red in the face, caught completely off guard by her interrogation. He tries to play it off as a trip to the blacksmith, but she just calls it a sibling date. He asks how she even knows, and she smugly reminds him that a tavern knows everything. Chiffon points out they're meeting up outside, and he can't even come up with a good excuse. Turns out Iris basically kicked him out of the house to meet her at the tavern for breakfast. Realizing he's late, he thanks her for the meal and makes a hasty exit. Chiffon just gives him a knowing smile, telling him to have fun with Iris. So Lurus heads out to the town square to meet her for their not-a-date. He spots her waiting and calls out, asking if she's been there long. But when he gets a good look, he just freezes, completely stunned by what he sees. Iris is waiting for him in a surprisingly elegant black dress, looking completely different. She's done up her hair, put on jewelry, and is giving off a seriously mature vibe. Our boy is completely floored, realizing she's grown up right under his nose. Turns out her friends gave her a full-on makeover the night before, which explains the sudden glow-up. He can't help but blush, admitting to himself that she looks genuinely beautiful. A couple of guys nearby notice her too, wondering aloud if she's waiting for her boyfriend. That boyfriend comment hits Luru like a truck, making him realize this totally looks like a date. An idea he immediately shoots down, thinking there's no way with his 14-year-old body. Shaking it off, he finally walks up and asks if he kept her waiting. She just gives him a sweet smile, saying she just arrived, and calls him step-brother. This immediately kills the mood for the onlookers, who now just see them as siblings. Luru can feel all the eyes on them, making him incredibly self-conscious, and he's not exactly handling the sudden public attention all that well. But Iris just grabs his arm, cheerfully reminding him they're heading to the blacksmith. Her smile is absolutely radiant, completely unfazed by the awkwardness of the situation. Luru is just a blushing mess, thinking she looks even more stunning up close. He quickly decides it's probably for the best not to think about this any further. With that settled, the two of them head off on their sibling date to the workshop. This scene shifts to the blacksmiths, with a hammer striking hot metal on an anvil, where a young craftsman seems to be deep in thought, looking over his wares. A cheerful blacksmith greets them at his shop, the prosperity of dwarves. Luru gets straight to the point, needing his sword sharpened for a match later today. As the smith gets to work, Luru can't help but notice the shop's very specific name. It gets him reminiscing about his Demon King days and how much he relied on dwarven smiths. After taking the sword, the blacksmith hands Luru a receipt for the job. But Luru's curiosity wins out, and he asks why a human-run shop is named after dwarves. Turns out the guy is just a huge fan, naming his shop to honor the legendary dwarven masters. Luru immediately picks up on the past tense. The smith talks about them like they're long gone. Before he can ask more, another customer interrupts, putting a pin in that conversation. This blacksmith just smiles and tells them to come back when the sword is ready. Outside, Iris connects the dots, comparing it to how their own people are called the ancient demonic race. This implication hits Luru hard. The dwarves might have completely vanished from the world. He recalls they were neutral artisans who worked with everyone, unlike the elves or beastmen. Since those other races are still around, he's left wondering what happened to the dwarves alone. This whole mystery is clearly starting to get under his skin. He even speculates that maybe the decline of human civilization is somehow to blame. Iris agrees it's a strong possibility, but admits they have no way of confirming it. This reminds her that Luru had wanted to visit the royal capital's library. Since they were too busy before, she suggests they finally go now, and Luru agrees. It's time to get serious about researching his own tribe, leading them to a massive library. Iris diligently plows through a massive tome, surrounded by towering stacks of research, but after hours of searching, she admits they've found absolutely nothing new. Luru just smirks, pointing out he's already the world's leading expert on his own tribe. This book's only confirm what the blacksmith said. The dwarves and goblins just vanished. He's still shocked to learn they're not just rare, but completely gone from the world. All the records are frustratingly vague, with most history after the Human War conveniently missing. Iris figures their only option left is to start digging up ancient ruins for clues. But Luru can't accept that an entire civilization could just disappear without leaving a single record. He suddenly gets an idea. If they're stuck, they should just ask a professional. So they approach the librarian, who confirms they've already seen everything in the public archives. Luru presses her, asking if there are any other places with more detailed records. She admits that as the national librarian, she's heard rumors of such places. Dot whispering that she knows of ancient books hidden away from public view. Turns out, these legendary books are stored in the royal palace's highly restricted library. This idea of a forbidden archive in the palace leaves them both completely stunned, but the librarian quickly crushes their hopes, explaining those records are strictly off-limits. Luru realizes this means the government is intentionally keeping something under lock and key. A book locked in chains can only mean one thing. It holds a history they want buried. He briefly considers just breaking into the castle to take a look himself, but immediately scraps the plan, knowing it would cause huge trouble for his government-employed dad. Luru pleads with the librarian, asking if there's any chance at all to read that book. She thinks for a second and remembers the tournament this weekend. The winner gets one request from the king. This, she suggests, might be their only shot at getting permission to access the forbidden archives. Luru immediately decides he'll just win, a declaration so fast it leaves the librarian speechless. She just sighs at the dumb couple, which our boy completely misinterprets as her doubting him. Iris then leans in, telling him that if he's planning on taking first place, then she'll just have to settle for second, flashing a very confident and competitive smile. As they leave, Luru admits the library trip was a dead end for direct info, but he's optimistic, since they now have an unexpected lead thanks to the tournament prize. He thanks Iris for coming with him, and she gets a little flustered, downplaying her help. Meanwhile, she's internally agonizing over what he thought of her special outfit today. This poor girl is just wondering if he'll ever see her as anything more than a little sister. A flashback reveals her friends were the masterminds behind the whole date glow-up. Iris tried to argue it was just a trip to the blacksmith, but her friends weren't hearing it. They mercilessly roasted Luru, calling him totally clueless about this kind of thing. Their grand strategy was to push her into a super mature look to finally get his attention. This theory was that if she looked grown-up enough, even a dense guy like Luru might finally notice. Back in the present, she walks beside him, totally lost in her own thoughts. Dot, and feeling her heart sink because he hasn't said a single word about her new look. She recalls her friend's brutal honesty, that even if Luru did notice, he'd never say anything anyway. All she wants is for him to notice her new look, just a tiny little compliment. Suddenly, her attention snaps to the side, her hopeful expression shifting to surprise. Because Luru has stopped dead in his tracks to stare at a pot of flowers. He just casually points out how pretty the marguerite flowers are, completely oblivious. Then he asks if she wants one, which only makes her more flustered. Iris quickly denies it, claiming she was just admiring them for a moment. She's even a little surprised at herself for being so captivated by a simple plant. Luru just watches her, probably wondering why she's acting so strange all of a sudden. Getting an idea, Iris tells him to wait right there for a second, and immediately dashes off, leaving our boy utterly confused. It turns out she's buying the very same pot of flowers he was just looking at. She returns, blushing, and shyly holds out the plant to him. This, she explains, is for the 7 years he's been taking care of her. A simple thank you gift that totally catches Luru off guard. But he just smiles and flips the gesture, telling her to take it as a gift from him instead. This move completely short-circuits Iris's brain, leaving her speechless. A flashback reminds her she's always been on the receiving end of his kindness. She never would have imagined this peaceful future back in her angry, magic-slinging days. Overcome with emotion, she tearfully accepts the flowers, thanking him again. Luru is just stunned by her reaction, clearly not expecting the waterworks. Luru warns her about getting the dress dirty, but she's too lost in the moment to care, thinking to herself that he probably still just sees her as a little kid. But even so, just being this close to him is enough to make her blush, and she quickly apologizes, admitting she was just really happy. With a brilliant smile, she promises to take good care of the flowers he gave her. As they walk toward the tournament grounds, she silently wishes these peaceful days would never end. They arrive at the venue, and Luru can't help but comment on the massive crowd. Iris excitedly points out that the opening ceremony is just about to begin, which makes sense since this tournament is the biggest event in the entire capital. Luru smirks, knowing that while everyone else is here for entertainment, his focus is on the prize. A dark aura flares around Iris as she muses how much she'd love to see a Demon Nation tournament. Her intense vibe is still turning heads, and Luru notes everyone's too busy staring at her. But his own attention is suddenly snagged by something else in the crowd, a ridiculously fancy carriage that clearly doesn't belong to any ordinary noble. A nearby spectator points it out, asking if that's what he thinks it is, and the realization hits them both. It's the personal carriage of the saint. This crowd starts buzzing, confirming this year's honored guest is from the sacred theocracy of Arca. Right on cue, the saint herself, a blonde woman, peeks out from the carriage window. While the onlookers are completely starstruck, Luru and Iris just watch with intrigue. Luru turns to her, asking if the title Saint brings back any memories, and she confirms it definitely does. Luru reasons that the original Saint was just human, so this has to be a new one. But Iris is suddenly struck by a chilling thought. She stops him in his tracks, a new theory forming in her mind. She points out that if he was reborn into this era, then it's entirely possible the Saint was reincarnated too, a horrifyingly logical point that Luru can't deny. He remembers the old saint's absolute hatred for demons, making Iris a prime target. He gives her a direct order. If it's really her, Iris has to run without hesitation, because he'll be the one to either hold her off or end her for good. Iris is stunned, realizing that deep down the Demon King is still very much alive. His sheer presence is so overwhelming she almost feels the instinct to kneel, just like she did when she first met the true King of Demons. Luru snaps her out of it with a head pat, reassuring her he can handle it. He just smiles and tells her not to worry about a thing. She just blushes and agrees, completely swept up in the moment. With that settled, they finally arrive at the opening ceremony venue. Luru scans the crowd, sizing up the other participants, and immediately writes them all off as not being a real challenge. Unfortunately, a couple of those not a challenge guys heard that loud and clear. Luru then teases Iris, asking why she's provoking people when they're not supposed to fight here. Iris immediately gets flustered, apologizing for blurting out her battle-hungry thoughts. Luru just smirks, thinking to himself that she's way more fired up than usual. He realizes that deep down, she's still a battle-hardened demon, and maybe his toughest opponent. At that moment, an announcer's voice cuts through, declaring the ceremony is about to begin. This two of them listen as the speaker hypes up the biggest event in the entire kingdom. With a grand flourish, the tournament is officially declared open to the roaring crowd. First on the agenda is a welcome speech from the king, and the audience falls silent. A crowned man steps onto the balcony, calmly telling everyone to be seated. He introduces himself as Griffith Land Leonard, the ruler of the Leonard Kingdom. Luru notes the king has a reputation for being wise, which Iris quietly confirms. She reminds him that the winner gets one request, all the more reason to go all out. This king continues, explaining that this year's tournament will last for a full week. He gives special thanks to an elder Lados from the ancient clan for setting up the barrier. An old elf-like man steps forward, formally introducing himself to the arena. Luru immediately wonders if this guy knows Yumi, since he's probably lived for centuries. Lados explains that his clan is strictly forbidden from directly aiding any single nation. He clarifies the barrier is temporary and they won't be sharing any more magical knowledge, much to one noble's relief. This elder then announces he has one final thing to say to the eager audience. He declares that while his clan prepared the stage, it's the warriors who will bring the excitement. With that, the entire crowd erupts in applause for Elder Lados' speech. But as he finishes, the elder gives a very specific, knowing look toward the stands, which completely catches Luru off guard, and he can't help but wonder if that ancient elf was staring directly at him. He asks Iris if she saw it too, but she seems just as confused. Luru tries to shrug it off, figuring he must be imagining things. Just then, the announcer moves on, introducing the honored guest from the holy nation of Arca, and out steps the saint herself, looking incredibly smug about the whole thing. Luru's expression immediately hardens at the sight of her. This announcer officially presents the guest from the holy nation of Arca, introducing her to the entire arena as their esteemed saintess. Our boy just glares, confirming this is the saint of the current era. With a halo-like object floating behind her, she begins her address to the crowd. She introduces herself as Charlotte Malm of the Sacred Theocracy. As she speaks, Luru comments that she looks oddly familiar, and Iris agrees. Iris recalls seeing portraits of the past saint, noting a very strong resemblance. But she also senses that something about this new one is just off. Luru agrees. The hair, the aura, it's all a match, but her face isn't quite the same. More importantly, he realizes he can barely sense any holy energy coming from her at all. Iris confirms it, which means this so-called saint isn't someone they need to worry about. Or so they think, as Charlotte clasps her hands to deliver her final words. With her eyes completely shadowed, Charlotte unleashes a massive wave of holy energy, and the sheer force of it catches both Luru and Iris completely off guard. Luru instantly throws up a barrier to shield Iris from the blast, who thanks him for the save. But he's laser-focused, recognizing that light as a very specific kind of divine magic. It's the exact same power the original saint used to wield back in the day. This revelation leaves him completely stunned, wondering how this is even possible. Because this new saint is now sprouting massive wings made of pure holy energy. She floats there for a moment, staff in hand, soaking in the attention. And with a serene smile, she offers a blessing to the entire arena. This announcer immediately thanks her for the grand gesture, which she humbly accepts. Luru is less than impressed, even though the crowd seems to feel strangely refreshed by it. He quickly checks on Iris, who confirms she's fine thanks to his quick thinking. With the Saints' performance over, the next speaker awkwardly takes the stage. Luru can't shake the feeling that this tournament is about to get very, very messy. Thankfully, the rest of the opening ceremony wraps up without any more divine interruptions. As they walk, Iris asks for his final verdict. Was that really the saint reincarnated? Luru shuts that theory down immediately, stating it's definitely not her. He explains that the saint who fought the hero and this new one are two different people. Iris is a bit surprised by his certainty, asking why he's so sure it's not a reincarnation. He admits the woman did use holy energy and something that looked like divine magic. But those wings were a form of advanced magic created by humans from the past era, and he's certain no modern human should be capable of pulling off a technique like that. He then realizes Iris never actually had to face the original saint in battle, did she? Because the power that woman wielded was on another level, she'd turn entire demon armies to ash. He points out the biggest proof. The fact that Iris is standing here totally fine means this isn't her. Iris admits she felt a little breathless from the holy energy, but it wasn't nearly enough to feel like she was in danger. So Luru concludes she might have some connection to the past, but she's definitely not the same person. He mulls over that thought, realizing Iris is onto something with this connection theory. After all, she does look like the old saint, and her ability to use divine magic is a huge red flag. Iris warns that anyone who can wield holy energy is dangerous, so Luru promises to teach her some countermeasures. This next day, the first round of the tournament qualifiers officially kicks off. Some poor, unsuspecting kid immediately charges at Luru with a full-on battle cry, and our boy almost feels bad for having to crush this kid's dreams so early on. He effortlessly stops the sword with just 2 fingers, much to his opponent's shock. Luru just tells him sorry, but he's gonna have to give up, that's just how it goes. With the kid knocked out, he picks up another participant's badge, bringing his total to 2. He recalls the rules for this round: collect 5 badges and hold them until sunset. But just as he's thinking, his senses suddenly go on high alert, and a blast of fire scorches the spot where he was just standing. Luru dodges just in time as the attacker casually apologizes for burning the pavement. Luru smirks, sarcastically reminding his attacker about that little no property damage rule. This girl who just blasted him with fire now stands frozen in the middle of the street. He calls her out directly, clearly enjoying her sudden panic over breaking the tournament guidelines, and she is absolutely terrified, stammering as she realizes who she just picked a fight with. Without a second thought, the spear wielder just turns tail and bolts for the hills. Luru just shrugs, figuring if the organizers didn't step in, then it's basically fair game. He then loots the badge from the guy who tried to ambush him, noting the kid had a decent plan. Deciding the poor guy has potential, Luru generously lets him off with just a simple knockout. This little display of power catches the eye of some other contestants who are impressed by his nerve. They point out that most rookies are too scared to even approach the stronger fighters. Luru eyes a terrified-looking guy in the distance, contemplating an easy target, but decides against it, since bullying the weak isn't really his style anymore. Meanwhile, a whole other group of participants is running for their lives from someone else. One of the girls collapses, unable to keep running from the terrifying presence hunting them down. With no other choice, she prepares to make her last stand, casting a water spell. Her 2 friends immediately join in, combining their fire and wind magic for a massive attack. Their elemental combo spell erupts in a huge explosion right in their pursuer's path. For a split second, the trio actually thinks they might have won this thing. That confidence completely evaporates when they see what's emerging from the smoke. Their hunter walks out unscathed, having blocked their attack with a chantless defensive spell. This hunter, a white-haired girl, just smirks, wondering if her prey is ready to give up, and the trio of mages absolutely loses their minds in sheer terror. Their screams echo through the streets, scaring every bird in a 5-block radius. Elsewhere, a little white dog trotting down the street catches the attention of some bystanders, who realize it's a familiar carrying a bag full of participant badges. Strangely enough, not a single contestant is even trying to take the badges from it. This dog then scurries over to a large wooden barrel in an alleyway, peeking out from behind it with a very sneaky little grin, just as a girl in a shrine maiden outfit pops out congratulating her familiar Fuka. Turns out the dog has successfully collected a whole handful of badges for her. As a reward, she promises to upgrade Fuka's meals from now on, much to the dog's delight. This onlookers finally get it. She was just hiding while her pet did all the dirty work. One of them has to admit using a familiar like that is a legitimate strategy. He does point out the major flaw, though. It leaves the caster completely defenseless. This girl just happily thanks him for the compliment, totally missing the point. She then proudly declares that she and Fuka are aiming to get 5th place. This just confuses the crowd, who can't understand why she wouldn't aim for the top spot. This reason is simple. 5th prize is a magical tablecloth that makes 3 meals a day. This guys think it's a decent prize, but not exactly something worth fighting a war over. They assume she must be starving, until one of them recalls seeing her eating at the tavern just yesterday. This shrine maiden explains to Fuka that if they can just secure 5th place, they'll finally be able to eat until they're completely full, the ultimate prize. Having aced the prelims, her master plan is now to just hide until the clock runs out. Right on cue, a bell tolls across the city, officially ending the first qualifying round. Back at the registration desk, Luru turns in his collected badges for confirmation, joining the line of other exhausted but successful participants who made the cut. This staff is a little impressed by his haul, but Luru just says he got lucky with one opponent. They take his extras, leaving him with a single badge to serve as his pass for the main event. Just as he's about to leave, a familiar voice calls out his name from across the room, and it's Rusty and the rest of his old adventuring party, looking pretty proud of themselves. Luru sees his other friends from the village are there too, all having made it through. Rusty boasts about how they use teamwork to strategically gather just enough badges to pass. But then one of them nervously asks about how Iris and the others managed to do, and they turn to see Iris and the Shrine Maiden dumping 2 massive sacks of badges on the counter. This entire group is completely stunned by the sheer volume, a slight overachievement to say the least. With everyone accounted for, Rusty suggests they all go celebrate with a meal at the tavern. This shrine maiden is practically vibrating with excitement at the mention of food, and Luru agrees. Iris gives him a little nod of approval, saying they both need to replenish their energy. He's all for it, already looking forward to whatever chaos round 2 will bring tomorrow. Elsewhere, in a much quieter part of the city, the Saintess walks with a clear purpose. With a grim look, she decides it's finally time to make her move. Her target is an old elf with a cane, who she quickly moves to intercept. She calls out to the elf, asking Lord Rados to please wait for a moment, who turns around, playing the part of a humble old man wondering what she could possibly want. He addresses her as the Holy Maiden, and she's clearly not here for pleasantries. Getting right to business, she asks to discuss the country's defenses. Rados immediately reminds her of their official stance. The ancient elves don't share technology, but she calls him out on that. Noting this tournament is a huge exception to their centuries-old rule, she presses him for an answer. Why break a centuries-old principle for a simple tournament? Instead of a real answer, he pivots to religion, saying the elves have their own sacred teachings. He vaguely suggests this cooperation is based on those teachings, leaving her completely confused. Naturally, when she asks for details, he pulls the "it's a closely guarded secret" card. He gives her a condescending smile, saying a religious leader should understand the need for secrets. This condescending deflection leaves her completely speechless for a second. Seeing she's not getting anywhere, she backs off and apologizes for taking up his time. Then she changes tactics, inviting him to watch the tournament with her, since it's far from over. With a suddenly cheerful smile, she says she's looking forward to watching with him. Rados is all smiles, agreeing that he's looking forward to it too. This two part ways with a handshake, the whole exchange feeling suspiciously cordial. Meanwhile, the second preliminary round kicks off in the third venue with a massive explosion. This second round kicks off with a decisive win as one knight easily takes down a mage. Watching from the stands, Luru confirms this round is a straight-up one-on-one tournament, and the Shrine Maiden explains the matches are happening all at once across different venues. Turns out only 200 of the original 1,000 participants made it this far, with only 24 moving on. Luru jokes it'd take forever, otherwise, and the girls laugh along with him. Iris smirks, noting that unlike the chaotic first round, this is a pure test of individual skill. Luru agrees, saying he's excited to see what everyone is capable of, especially since their own matches aren't scheduled until much later in the day. With perfect timing, the announcer calls up the next 2 contestants for their bout. First up is a rising star named Mi, who's apparently been making a name for herself. Her opponent is a hulking giant of a man wielding a massive battle axe, a guy named Greffus, who looks like he could crush her with one hand. This entire crowd thinks it's a total mismatch, suggesting she should just forfeit to save herself. Iris, however, seems to know better, watching the arena with a knowing little smile. Down in the ring, Mi stares down her massive opponent, completely unfazed. This moment the match starts. Greffus charges with a huge overhead swing, but he hits nothing but air as Mi vanishes, reappearing right behind him. She unleashes a lightning-infused sword technique before he can even turn around, landing a clean, electrifying strike that sends him crashing to the ground. And just like that, the fight is over, with Mi declared the winner. This crowd is stunned as Mi effortlessly takes down the giant, proving size isn't everything. Luru and Iris are both impressed, noting how much stronger she's gotten since leaving the village. Just as that match ends, the group gets hyped for the next one. It's Yuri's turn to fight. Her opponent is some pretty boy knight named Ortez, who's already got a whole fan club cheering him on. This guys in the audience are less than thrilled, openly hoping this popular kid gets knocked down a peg. Luru has to admit the guy looks skilled, and Iris confirms he's a dedicated swordsman. This has their friends worried since a support mage like Yuri is at a huge disadvantage in a duel. Iris, however, looks completely unbothered, confidently stating that Yuri will be just fine. Down in the arena, the popular and skilled Ortez prepares to face his opponent, the equally popular rising star, Yuri, who gives him a confident little smile. As the match officially begins, the two fighters square off from a distance. Ortez immediately tries to charm her, suggesting she surrender so he won't have to hurt her. Yuri just politely declines his condescending offer, not intimidated in the slightest. In fact, she smugly informs him that she's not nearly weak enough to be hurt by him. That little comment clearly gets under his skin, wiping the smile right off his face. He asks if she's underestimating him just because of his looks, his tone turning serious. Gripping his sword, he decides it's time to stop playing around, and he lunges forward to show her what he calls his true power. But Yuri is already one step ahead, calmly summoning a sword spirit with her wand. A massive spectral knight materializes out of thin air, effortlessly blocking his attack dead in its tracks. Ortez is absolutely stunned, his brain short-circuits at the sight of his blocked sword, and he stares in disbelief at the glowing spectral knight that just materialized to stop him. This massive summon looms over him, an unmovable wall between him and his opponent. Yuri just smirks from the background, smugly asking if he's surprised by her little trick, casually explaining that it's a spirit summoned entirely through her own magic. This revelation sends a shockwave through the crowd. Only high-level mages can summon spirits. And even Ortez's fangirls are panicking, admitting they've never seen a spirit like this one. One of them points out the chant was weirdly short for such a powerful spell, wondering if it was some kind of ancient magic to pull off a summon so fast. Up in the stands, Luruteru's friend compliments Iris on training Yuri so incredibly well. But Iris, ever the pragmatist, tells him to save it until the match is actually won. Down below, Ortez actually apologizes, admitting he was the one who underestimated her. But his pride is on the line, and he grits his teeth, declaring he can't lose. So he raises his sword for another desperate, full-power swing. And once again, the spirit's massive blade meets his, stopping him cold. He realizes there's no way to get to Yuri while this thing is guarding her. Luru notes that Ortez isn't making bad decisions, but Iris knows the real issue. The guy is just way too slow to keep up with Yuri's magic. This spirit's overwhelming power sends him flying backwards across the arena floor, and with Ortez completely defeated, Yuri calmly declares the match is over. With the spirit gone, Yuri is declared the winner, giving the crowd a polite little wave. Up in the stands, Iris gives her performance a passing grade, which makes Luru sweat a little. Now that Yuri and Mi are through, Iris notes that only Rusty remains from their village crew. Luru, however, is completely confident, proudly stating his first disciple won't lose so easily. Iris smirks at the thought, as the Demon King's disciple. Losing isn't exactly in the job description. Down in the arena, the announcer calls up the next contestant, a certain talked-about adventurer, and it's Rusty, looking like he's about to have a full-blown panic attack. Luru explains that unlike the others, Rusty has a humble side, which is putting it mildly, and apparently, he's managed to attract a fan club of older women cheering him on. Luru can't help but notice his supporters are of a slightly more mature demographic. His opponent is a fully armored swordsman who looks like a knight of the kingdom. Luru's surprised to see knights participating, but Iris reminds him even shrine maidens are here. That comment takes a solid second to register before Luru has a delayed wait, what moment. Right on cue, Fuka and her dog are right there, leading a full-on cheer squad for Rusty. Luru is completely baffled by their sudden appearance, but Iris just tells them to get ready. This match officially begins, with Rusty and the knight squaring off in the center of the arena. This knight immediately recognizes Rusty's stance, asking if he's the disciple of Lord Catasnora. Rusty gets all flustered, admitting he's not sure if he's the beloved one, because there's another, much stronger disciple in the tournament, leaving the knight stunned. This knight apologizes, revealing his ultimate dream is to cross swords with Catasnora himself. This knight cheerfully explains he got this information straight from Catasnora himself, revealing a deal where if he beats the beloved disciple, he earns a duel with the master. He realizes Rusty is just as surprised as he is, but this only clarifies his path forward. With a renewed sense of purpose, he declares he must now defeat both of them. Up in the stands, Luru is having a meltdown as Iris asks what kind of promise his dad made. Iris correctly guesses her father-in-law just got steamrolled by the guy's overwhelming passion, which a quick flashback confirms. Luru's dad is a total pushover for intense begging. Luru starts worrying he'll have to fight this guy, but Iris points out that's only if Rusty loses. In a brilliant flash of self-preservation, Luru decides he's now Rusty's biggest fan. Fuka immediately ropes him into her cheer squad, handing him a fan from her hometown. And just like that, Luru is forced into a very unenthusiastic cheer for Rasu T. Down in the arena, Rusty assumes this Kingdom Knight must have learned his tactics from Patrick. He powers up his aura, getting ready to put that theory to the test, and the two swordsmen clash in the center of the ring, testing each other's strength. This knight is genuinely surprised by Rusty's speed, a grin spreading across his face. But the sheer force of the blow sends Rusty skidding backward across the stone floor. Luru, meanwhile, is doing his best to cheer while Rusty's fan club goes absolutely wild. With a confident smirk, Rusty realizes his opponent isn't even fighting seriously yet. This knight calls him out on the same thing, suggesting they both stop warming up. They separate across the arena, both fighters powering up as the real match is about to begin. Luru explains to Fuka that Rusty is channeling mana, a pretty impressive skill for a warrior. He's combining internal channeling from Luru's dad with the external magic Luru taught him. Fuka is stunned. He's layering multiple enhancements, which is supposed to be impossible. Luru gets a little sentimental, admitting that while they all helped train him, it was Rusty's own hard work and passion that truly got him to this level. With a proud smile, our boy silently cheers for his first disciple to take home the win. Down in the arena, their swords clash again in a shower of sparks, but in terms of pure skill, the Kingdom Knight clearly has the upper hand. Rusty knows he can't win a straight power contest and decides it's time to make a move. He lets out a massive battle cry, winding up for a seemingly desperate, all-out swing. This knight easily parries the attack, his own blade glowing with a powerful green aura. Up in the stands, everyone watches in shock as Rusty's sword is completely deflected, leaving him totally off balance and struggling against the knight's overwhelming strength. This knight presses his advantage, driving Rusty back with pure unrelenting force. Fuka and Luru can only watch in suspense as it looks like it's all over for their friend. Luru can't believe his eyes, but the knight just smirks, clearly enjoying his dominance. He goes in for the finishing blow, a powerful downward slash aimed right at Rusty, but Rusty dodges, and Luru realizes his disciple baited the entire attack perfectly. Luru is absolutely ecstatic, screaming his approval from the stands for that slick move. And with his opponent on the ground, Rusty strikes a pose, the clear winner of the match. With the match over, Rusty immediately runs over to find Luru and the gang. He's practically bouncing off the walls, desperate to know what they thought of his performance. Luru gives him a solid, good job, while Iris offers the high praise of it wasn't bad. Our boy specifically points out the slick feint at the end, which makes Rusty absolutely beam. Meanwhile, Yuri congratulates me and Iris, glad their training is still paying off. Rusty then asks if everyone's heading over to watch their friend Gaia's match next. This scene shifts to a different arena where another fight is already reaching its climax. A catgirl fighter lands a brutal claw swipe against some poor mage, who's now on his knees, refusing to give up even with his wand knocked away. But with her claws at his throat, he's finally forced to concede the match. Up in the stands, Luru and Rusty agree it was a great fight with both sides giving it their all. Someone else points out the loser, Sharika, just had a terrible matchup from the start. Rusty explains that since opponents are chosen by lottery, luck is a huge factor in this tournament. Luru gets a bit of a devious look, mulling over that whole depends on luck thing, and then explains the dark side of that lottery to a young blonde fighter who looks horrified. Turns out, you can also get matched with someone ridiculously out of your league. Right on cue, the kid's match begins, and he's staring down an absolute unit of a man. His opponent just smirks, casually offering the kid a free first move. But the young fighter, Gaia, isn't backing down and accepts the condescending offer. This big guy just scoffs, treating this whole thing like a public sparring session. Rusty asks if getting completely outmatched is a common thing here, and Luru just says it's not rare, musing that it's a rough deal to make the big stages to get flattened in seconds. Down in the arena, Gaia was hoping for a shot at Luru, but he's already getting overwhelmed, and his opponent's blade smashes right through his guard with overwhelming force, leaving him gritting his teeth, barely able to withstand the brutal impact. With one final declaration, the match is called, leaving Gaia defeated on the arena floor. Back in the stands, Rusty tries to find a silver lining, saying at least it was a worthy opponent. He then reminds Luru that his match is up next, suggesting they go find Gaia's group. This whole gang heads out into the city streets to meet up with their friends. Gaia is completely drained, complaining about his terrible luck drawing an advanced class fighter. Rusty tries to cheer him up, pointing out he put up a great fight considering the massive power gap. They finally meet up with the rest of their crew, who are all celebrating their own victories. Now totally fired up, Gaia vows to get stronger, as Rusty asks Luru who he's fighting. Luru, with a bit too much confidence, admits he hasn't even bothered to check yet, so the whole group makes their way over to the official tournament bracket to see the matchups. Rusty points out Luru's lucky to be in the main arena, which will draw a huge crowd. A thought that dies the second Luru sees his opponent's name and has a complete meltdown. This bracket reveals Iris is up against an advanced adventurer, which is already a tough fight. But Luru has drawn a special class fighter, Schwierliv of the Jester's Library. Rusty has absolutely no clue who that is, and Luru is just appalled by his ignorance. Luru's face drops as he realizes he's fighting one of the capital's top special class mages. Rusty tries to find a silver lining, noting this mage is ranked below Yumi's, so maybe they'll go easy. Luru tries to talk himself up, remembering he beat his dad so he won't get completely stomped. Gaia, his childhood friend, admits he's still worried even after hearing Luru beat Patrick. Our boy tries to brush it off, but Gaia is genuinely concerned about him facing a special class fighter. In fact, Gaia is so worried he grabs Luru and just straight up suggests he should forfeit. Rusty tries to calm him down, guessing they're probably not the murder you instantly type of opponent. That does nothing to soothe Gaia, who demands Luru promise to forfeit if things get dangerous. He shouts that Luru only has one life, while our boy and Rusty just share a knowing smile. Rusty notes Guy is surprisingly protective of his little brothers, which Luru confirms has always been true. Now feeling the pressure, Luru vows he can't put on a lame fight with a senior like that watching. But before his match, the group learns that Iris is up first, with Yuri and Mi wishing her luck. Iris flashes a confident smirk, promising to fight in a way that won't embarrass her brother-in-law. This scene shifts to the massive, roaring arena where her match is about to take place, and as Iris enters the ring, her opponent is already waiting with a smug little grin. This new fighter sizes her up, identifying Iris as the much-talked-about newcomer. She even knows her full title, Iris of the clan Seekers of the Era, setting the stage for a serious fight.